Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Rias comes to Konoha to get Naruto and uses him part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Naruto opened his eyes slowly. He saw the surface of his table in the classroom. He furrowed his eyebrows in concentration. He tried to remember why he was looking at the top of the table in his classroom. He raised his head and looked around the classroom. To his surprise, he was the only one left. He looked to his side, out the window, and saw the setting sun. Well damn, I have slept through the last few classes and even past the ending, just my day, thought Naruto. He yawned once and raised his muscular arms. He stretched and sighed when he felt a crack in his lower back. He lowered his arms and stood up, taking his school bag. I should get home to finish my training for the day, thought Naruto. It wasn't important to him now whether he had homework, since he had more than once forgotten to do it. He had other priorities in his second life as an ordinary civilian. He walked out, humming a soft tone. When he entered the corridor, he stopped. He remained silent and moved not a single muscle in his entire body. He closed his eyes and concentrated. He remained like this for 30 seconds before opening his eyes. It seems like I am not the last one in the school. TMJM, Naruto, Nanaka, Takagawa, and even Ms. Hasegawa are still in the building, thought Naruto. He shrugged his shoulders and began to walk through the corridors of the Hijirigasaka Academy, a private school in Tokyo, Japan. Naruto's ocean blue eyes were focused on the corridor before him and his golden blonde, spiky hair moved slightly with every step. When it came to hair color, Naruto was indeed a special case. Someone with blonde golden hair like him was pretty rare in Japan in general. Most people in Japan have dark colors, like black or brown. He also had 6 whisker marks on his cheeks, making him even more special in looks. He wore Hijirigasaka Academy's male school uniform, which consisted of a black blazer, dress shirt, pants, and shoes. He hummed a soft tune while walking around the corner. It's been 3 years already, thought Naruto. He appeared in this world 3 years after he died back in the elemental nations, 3 years after he got his first taste of a peaceful life. When he was still in the elemental nations, he never had a peaceful day since Konoha hated him and many were after him because of his heritage and the beast inside him. A group of S-rank criminals were after him because he had the strongest big-tailed beast sealed inside him. He hated it but never gave up and trained like an obsessed maniac to get stronger. No one ever wanted to show him something right, so he dropped out of the academy after some time to train himself. If no one wanted to show him something, he would train alone. He did what he knew would be correct. Strength training and meditation. He remained isolated inside the village for most of his life until he turned 13. He dropped out of the academy at 9 and has done the same thing every day since then. He trained from sunrise to sunset. He never learned any special ninjutsu or genjutsu since no one would teach him something. He only knew how to use chakra to strengthen his body to some extent and how to stick to his surface. Before he left the academy, he got his hands on a scroll that described advanced chakra theory and usage. It took him a long time to learn everything. He could stick to his surface with his feet, walk on water, use chakra to boost himself forward in a burst of speed, and use other techniques. He also discovered a method to boost his physical attributes even further. It was something that every living doing, but no one really explored it further. Sure, with time, people learned how to use it more efficiently, but not in the way Naruto thought would be possible. While he meditated, he could feel how his body reacted differently every time he took a deeper normal breath. He tried many different ways to breathe while tensing his stomach muscles, for example. With time, he got the right formula to breathe and to get more oxygen into his body, letting his body react in different ways. He called this breathing technique Zen SHKCHK no Kakik, total concentration breathing. Total concentration breathing was a breathing technique that involved expanding one's lungs to intake as much air as possible, accelerating one's blood flow and heartbeat while increasing one's inner body temperature, resulting in one's bones and muscles becoming more excited. Total concentration breathing enhanced the user's physical traits and capabilities while remaining human. Such traits included superhuman strength, speed, stamina, durability, endurance, and the mental abilities needed to keep up with their superhuman bodies, such as a faster thought process and reaction time. There would also be an enhanced version of this technique called Zen SHKCHKJMCHK, total concentration. Constant. Total concentration. Constant was a total concentration breathing state during the morning, noon, and night, and even while asleep, Naruto could constantly maintain. There was an immense difference in strength, speed, and stamina between someone who could maintain total concentration breathing at all times and someone who didn't. He needed 2 years to master both forms of breathing techniques, but he mastered both. Since Naruto was at an enhanced level, his total concentration breathing could also slow down the circulation of poison in the bloodstream and even clotting wounds from severe injuries. By focusing on every inch of the body and raising the accuracy of one's breathing, one could spread their sensitivity throughout one's body and detect and even heal hidden internal wounds they may have. When he turned 13 and was grocery shopping, two shinobi of an organization called Akatsuki appeared inside the village and tried to capture Naruto. Naruto lived inside a little wooden house on the far outskirts of the village. No one wanted him in their near vicinity. This was the first time Naruto realized how dangerous it was for him. Since he had trained so hard since he was 9, he could surprise the two Akatsuki members, escape, and make a run for it. He could run away long enough for many Anbu to appear between Naruto and the two criminals who wanted to kidnap him. It was pretty surprising for the two Akatsuki members to see Naruto's raw speed. Both thought they could kidnap him without any trouble, but no. His physical fitness, speed, strength, and other attributes were pretty high. He was already rivaling Jonin's level after his intense training and because of the extra boost from the total concentration breathing. Of course, no one knew this fact, but it was still pretty impressive. Just when Naruto thought he would have his peace, a masked man appeared inside his home a few weeks afterward. He tried to escape, but he wasn't fast enough this time. He got captured inside a genjutsu, and before he knew it, he was dead. He didn't know how it happened, but the last thing he knew was looking into the Sharingan of the man who kidnapped him. He only knew that the Bijk was removed from him. Even trapped inside the genjutsu, he could feel how something was extracted from his body, and the only possible thing would be the Bijk, which was sealed inside him. The next thing Naruto knew was waking up in this new world, completely confused but with unknown knowledge. It took time, but he managed to create a life in this world as a civilian. He was now 16 years old and lived the life he always wanted. He smiled, thinking about all the things he experienced in this life. He found a few friends, people he could trust, and kind old people he helped once a week with their garden, for example. He walked down the stairs and looked forward to coming home. He would cook himself something, eat, and then begin his training. He didn't have many hobbies since he basically only did one thing in his past life. Training was something that always felt good. Even when he didn't do as much as in his past life, he still trained every day. When he reached the last steps, a classmate of his came running toward him. Naruto stopped and looked confused at Basara TMJM. He seemed worried and in a hurry. "Hey, TMJM. Everything alright? You seem troubled," said Naruto. Basara was a tall and slim 16-year-old with unkempt brown hair jutting in all directions and light green eyes. He wore Hijigazaka Academy's male school uniform, which consisted of a black blazer, dress shirt, pants, and shoes. He hummed a soft tune while walking around the corner. "Oh, hi Uzumaki. I didn't know you were still here," said Basara. "This would be the case if I didn't sleep through the last classes and woke up only 5 minutes ago," said Naruto. Basara chuckled a little and nodded in understanding. He could remember that Naruto slept at the end of the school day. He didn't think Naruto would sleep until now. It was almost 6 p.m. and the sun was just about to set and vanish on the horizon. "Anyway, what's up? Why in such a hurry?" asked Naruto. "I'm sorry Uzumaki. I need to get to the infirmary. Let's talk tomorrow," said Basara. Naruto walked 2 steps aside, not to step in the way. "Of course. Just be careful. I have seen a few boys still in the building. They may still be after you," said Naruto. Basara was the subject of every boy's hatred except for a few exceptions like Naruto. The reason for that was that the two school idols, Yuki Nanaka and Mio Nares, were pretty close to Basara. As it turned out, Yuki Nanaka was a childhood friend of Basara and Mio was said to even live with him. Whether everything was now true or not wasn't important. The important factor was that Basara was pretty close to the two girls most desired in the school, which made him the most hated boy. Naruto also lied to Basara just now since Takagawa was the only boy besides Naruto and Basara was still in the building. There were no other boys in the building. He only said this because he wanted to give Basara a warning. Naruto still didn't know what the situation was in this world. He knew there was something else besides humans. He saw people who could produce multiple dark feathered wings from their backs and fly with them. He also saw something like a fusion between an animal and a human. He once saw a woman with 2 black cat ears and 2 black cattails behind her. It was strange, but he didn't investigate all those beings further since he would only get himself into some mess. He knew his insane luck when it came to situations like this. The only reason he warned Basara was because of Takagawa. He didn't know what he was, but he wasn't human. The guy was dangerous, so much was clear, and since Basara was a pretty chill guy in Naruto's eyes, he warned him. "Thank you Uzumaki. I will keep that in mind," said Basara before he ran past Naruto up the stairs. "No problem," said Naruto before turning away from the stairs and walking toward the exit. "So you still don't want to interfere?" asked a female voice inside Naruto's head. Naruto frowned when his partner called out to him. Since he came into this world, he has always had strange dreams before he met the being who caused those dreams. What the? Naruto stood on top of a cliff, looking down at a broad valley. A mountain range surrounded the valley itself. The mountains were all covered in snow. Naruto didn't know what he was doing here. He was sure he'd just come back from his daily training and went to sleep. "Naruto Uzumaki," said a female voice. Naruto turned around and couldn't see anything. He looked around and tried to identify the source of the female voice. The voice echoed through the valley and let it appear as if the voice came from all directions. Naruto heard a distant roar. The sound of a thunderclap. He turned toward the valley again and directed his gaze toward the former white clouds. He could watch how the former white clouds began to get replaced by gray clouds. At first, nothing else happened, but Naruto felt something as if something was pulling him toward a destination not visible to his eye. The clouds began to produce lightning and thunder. The sounds of the produced thunder were echoing through the valley. A show of beautiful lightning charges was displayed for Naruto's eyes. The lightning began to strike down and twist in multiple directions before the lightning bolt vanished as fast as it appeared. Naruto could see that in the middle of the storm, a massive round see-through sphere appeared through the dark clouds. Inside the sphere were storm clouds with lightning charging through them. Naruto didn't know why, but he had this feeling that the female voice came from the sphere. "We finally meet Naruto Uzumaki," repeated the female voice. This time, it was like the voice came directly from the front where the sphere was hovering. "Who are you, and what is all of this?" asked Naruto. "We are inside your subconscious right now. My name is Narukami, Ringing God. I have been inside you since you woke up in this world. I watched your progression in your life and I tried to get in touch with you," said Narukami. Naruto remained silent but could feel how the strange feeling he had since the sphere appeared on the horizon spread further inside his body. He watched as cracks appeared on the prison that held Narukami in the sphere. The cracks began to widen when Naruto felt how the energy that invaded his mind and body spread further. Just when he felt the energy flow through his entire body, the prison shattered and the storm inside the sphere was released. For 1 second, Naruto stood in the middle of a raging thunderstorm. All around him were clouds filled with thunder and lightning. But even when the lightning shot toward him, he bent around Naruto, as if he didn't want to hurt Naruto. The next second, the storm vanished and a bright light blinded Naruto's vision. When Naruto opened his eyes again, a standard katana with a black oval handguard and yellow handle inside a white sheath hovered over the ground just a meter away from Naruto. Lightning bolts sparkled around the blade while it hovered there, completely free from the force of gravitation. Naruto didn't know why, but he automatically held out his hand toward the sword. The sword didn't move and waited patiently while Naruto's hand got closer with each second. When Naruto's hand touched the handle, everything became clear to him. "No. I don't intend to interfere. Nanaka, Nerus, and TMJM will be strong enough to handle whatever Takagawa is planning," said Naruto while he walked out the main entrance of the school. He hummed to himself and thought about what he should make himself to eat. "You know you can't hide forever," said Narukami inside Naruto's mind. Naruto shrugged and continued to ignore the fact that Basara, Mio, and Yuki were in danger. All of them had some power that was superior to normal humans. Those three would be alright. "I told you before what my intentions were. You know of my past life, so you should understand why I am staying away from trouble. I think I am allowed to be selfish when I had no choice in my old life for the hell I had to go through. Because of the choices others made, I didn't have a single happy memory from my life in the elemental nations," said Naruto. He turned the corner and began to walk on the sidewalk, away from the school. "Ever since I could remember, everyone ignored me, beat me into the ground for things I never did and other things a child shouldn't experience. They all were selfish and I had to suffer because of them. I won't allow anyone to take this gift that was presented to me. I will do anything possible to stay away from anything that could cause my peaceful life to shatter," said Naruto. "As you wish. I am satisfied that you trained everything I taught you for the case you will be discovered and you need to fight again," said Narukami. Narukami was a so-called sacred gear. Something Naruto first didn't even want to know about. The less he knew about all this weird stuff, the better, in his opinion, but since he had a sacred gear, he let Narukami explain what a sacred gear was. Sacred gears, also known as God's artifacts, were items with powerful abilities bestowed upon humans by God of the Bible. The original God of the Bible created the sacred gears as part of his system to enact miracles on Earth. Humans or human hybrids were the only species that could be born with sacred gears. A person could own more than one sacred gear at the same time. However, this almost always happens because the individual comes to a second or even more sacred gear through irregular circumstances than through birth. Narukami gave Naruto the ability to manipulate lighting and a few special techniques he could use. All those techniques were based on lightning manipulation or, more specifically, electromagnetism. Since Narukami was a sacred gear in the shape of a sword, Naruto learned how to wield Narukami. The way Narukami was wielded was in the form of Batenjutsu, also known as the quick draw style. With time, Naruto became very proficient in swordsmanship, especially in Batenjutsu. Narukami didn't appear with a sheath for no reason. Most techniques Naruto used with Narukami were Batenjutsu-based techniques, where Naruto unsheathed Narukami, unleashed a strong slash, and sheathed Narukami afterward again. One of the techniques he could use was called Ribsu Seito, reverse sight. Reverse sight was a technique that lets him sense the electrical impulses of the people around him after cutting off his eyesight, like closing his eyes, thus letting Naruto perceive all of their movements and intentions without them being able to deceive him. This was also the technique he used to detect the people in the school building after he left the classroom and stopped for 30 seconds. It was a handy ability to have. It's only natural. I am well aware that it could be that I am being discovered, and for that, I must be ready when the time comes. It would be stupid to reject your help and your abilities. After all, it's not every day that you get the ability to manipulate lightning or summon a sword out of thin air. Having a weapon at hand at all times is awesome enough, said Naruto with a chuckle. Naruto smiled, looking forward to the next few days. It was something he would never have thought of in his old life. This world, this new life he had, was something he was grateful for. He even liked going to school since, this time, it was a normal school experience where he got a few friends, was annoyed sometimes because of his teachers, and even gossiped with others about someone when something was making the rounds. It was a simple but fulfilling life. A few hours later, Naruto ran through the park from Tokyo to end his training for the day. The sun was about to set and he only needed to run 5 more kilometers for the day. He stopped by a bench to sit down for a second. He took the sports drink he took with him to drink something. His throat was dry and he wanted some form of liquid to flow down his throat. Naruto raised the sports drink toward his lips and sipped on it. He felt the liquid flowing down his throat. When he took the sports drink from his lips, he sighed, satisfied. He looked toward the setting sun and smiled. It was a liberating feeling to look a little bit at the setting sun. No one knew why, but the setting sun or the sunrise always triggered certain feelings in humans. It was always special, no matter how often Naruto looked at the sunrise or sunset. Naruto stood up and continued his running. He already thought about what he should read after he came home and showered. Back in the elemental nations, it was almost impossible for Naruto to enjoy a good book, but in this world, it was a little different. He liked to read books of different genres. He was reading 3 books right now. One book was about a samurai who lived in ancient Japan, the other book was about talking animals, and the last book he read was about a man who took up the challenge of facing the entire world to protect his loved ones. Naruto would most likely continue to read the book about the samurai since he was most advanced in this book. It was an hour later when he finished his run for the day. He was on the outskirts of Tokyo and pretty close to his apartment. Naruto wanted to walk the last bit of distance but stopped when, out of nowhere, an explosion occurred in the building he was walking past. He concentrated chakra into his legs, jumped away to a safe distance, and crossed his arms for his face to shield it. He was happy to be still able to use chakra even when he had never learned any form of ninjutsu or jinjutsu. Using chakra to jump long distances would be a skill he would miss, but he still had his chakra. The glass of the surrounding buildings was shattering when the blast wave of the explosion hit the windows. Naruto looked at the fire which came out of the building and frowned. He didn't understand how such an explosion could happen out of nowhere until someone flew out of the building and crashed into the ground with heavy injuries. Naruto also noticed that every human on the street was gone. Someone walked out of the raging fire without any harm and looked at the person who lay on the street with heavy injuries. Naruto guessed a fight broke out between those two and during their fight, they triggered the explosion inside the building. He could also imagine that they didn't start the fight inside the building. He had seen that a part of the wall of the south side of the building was missing. Naruto had instantly searched for cover behind some cars standing on the side of the streets. He only hoped he wouldn't be noticed. He was hiding behind the cars right now and had his eyes closed, using his reverse sight to keep track of both. He could feel where they were and what they were up to this way. He would know if they would notice him this way. "I have to say, I am disappointed, Bosakai," said a male voice. "I really thought we were friends." The person raised his hand and a dark purple aura appeared around the person. Asara struggled a bit but could stand up with effort. His right lower arm and hand were covered in silver armor. He also held a large silver single-edged sword. "Takagawa, I said I would protect them." Naruto heard everything and thought he was in some Roman. When he thought about Basara's connection to Mio and Yuki, the 2 most desired girls in the entire school, his actions in general, and now this declaration, it was like Naruto was watching a live-action harem story of the main protagonist. It was weird when he thought about it. But this wasn't so important right now. He had to get away from here to only remain as a watcher. He would lie if he hadn't already read 1 or 2 light novels centered about a male protagonist getting a harem. Naruto also knew how the male side characters were treated most of the time in those stories. It wasn't something a man should drive for. He hoped Basara and Takagawa would take their fight somewhere else. He prepared to use his maximum speed to get away from his position when both would be focused on fighting each other. He changed his position from sitting to crouching. A few shock waves rocked through the street when Basara and Takagawa were clashing with each other. How Takagawa could stop Basara's big sword with his bare hand wasn't important. Naruto tensed his legs, focusing his breathing on both legs. His muscles tensed even further and were twitching. He also focused chakra into his legs to further boost his speed for this sprint he had planned. He would be able to boost his speed even further if he summoned Narukami and used a technique where he would use lightning manipulation to boost his reflexes and speed. But this was out of the question. He learned early on that others could feel a sacred gear if it was summoned. The moment Naruto began to move, the sound of a thunderclap echoed through the street. Naruto charged away from Takagawa and Basara at the maximum speed possible without Narukami. The ground where he pushed himself off to begin the dash was destroyed in the process, and a little crater was created. Takagawa and Basara stopped for a second to look at the spot Naruto was a second ago. All they could see was how yellow blur charged away, leaving behind a lot of dust. They couldn't see who dashed away. The only thing they knew was that this person was very fast. Takagawa narrowed his eyes, seeing how the person vanished in the distance in just 2 seconds. He hadn't felt the person who was hiding behind the car. He had to block another sword slash from Basara before leaping back and landing on the roof of a building. Basara landed on the ground, looking up toward Takagawa. Naruto appeared in a side street a minute later. He sighed in relief when he got away and could remain undetected. He wanted to walk out of the side street before he could feel someone behind him. He jumped up and used chakra to stick to the wall. He could see some of those weird fellas with black feather wings after he opened his eyes again. "I didn't think you could detect me, I am surprised," said the fallen angel. Naruto didn't have the nerve for that and held his hand to the side. Lightning surrounded him before Narukami appeared in his left hand. "So you already can summon your sacred gear. Nothing personal, kid. I must kill you before a devil would reincarnate you into a devil. It would do us nothing good if you would become a devil and use your sacred gear against us fallen angels." The fallen angel always had his gaze on Naruto. Naruto was sitting in a crouch on the wall, looking at the fallen angel on the ground. The fallen angel had a blade out of light energy in his hand. The appearance wasn't so important since the fallen angel widened his eyes. Even when he never let Naruto out of his eyesight, he suddenly was before him. The distance between them was a good 15 meters, and Naruto suddenly was before him. He didn't even vanish for a second before appearing before him. Naruto was simply before him. Naruto held the scabbard from Narukami in his left hand, his right hand on the handle. With his lightning ability, Naruto created a powerful magnetic field around the blade and sheath of Narukami at his waist level. The fallen angel swung his sword to try to kill Naruto, who was before him. But it was already too late. Naruto opened his mouth and said the word of the most powerful close-range technique he could perform with Narukami. Bakiri. Lightning cutter, Naruto unsheathed Narukami and unleashed a slash that surpassed the speed of sound and emanated a large amount of head. This Batenjutsu was his most powerful attack. It was Rikiri, the ultra-electromagnetic Batenjutsu. The strike of that Batenjutsu had the tremendous power and speed to even cut through a lightning bolt. The loud sound of a thunderclap echoed through the side street. The fallen angel got obliterated and turned to ashes from the extreme force and heat this single slash attack unleashed. Naruto sheathed Narukami again and stood up straight, looking at the spot where the fallen angel stood a second ago. "So you finally mastered Nukiashi, trackless step," said Narukami. Naruto looked at Narukami in his left hand and shrugged. "You saw it, didn't you?" He didn't see me move toward him. He only noticed me when I was already before him. "But this isn't so important right now, let's get out of here. TMJM and Takagawa will have noticed the attack," said Naruto. He looked around him and could see the damage his single slash caused. He not only completely obliterated the fallen angel, but also the surrounding walls of the buildings. Naruto used the fact that he had summoned Narukami and channeled lightning through his nervous system to sharpen his reflexes and to make him faster. He vanished and thought about the moment he used the trackless step the first time against an opponent. It was a hard technique to learn, but he finally mastered the last thing Narukami taught him. Trackless step was an ancient martial art where the user combined their breath control and footwork to slip into the consciousness of their opponent or intended target. The brain was unable to process all the little details around it without overworking itself and burning out. As such, instead of accelerating one's movements, it makes their movements challenging to perceive, since their opponent's brain doesn't recognize it as relevant information, thus making it appear as if they just zoned out until the very moment they're attacked. For the enemy, it looked like the user of Nukiashi would suddenly appear before them. Even when someone was extremely fast, they could see someone vanishing before appearing, but it was different with Nukiashi. When someone used Nukiashi, the enemy would see it as if they were before them all of a sudden. At one moment, the user of Nukiashi was a good distance away from the enemy, and at the same moment, the user of Nukiashi was ready to attack. I just hope I can get away with what happened today, thought Naruto. Naruto was on his way to the school when he saw something. He had just passed a side alley when he stopped. He took 3 steps back to look into the alley. He thought he saw someone. Naruto looked into the alley but shrugged after a few seconds and continued on his way. He already made plans to avoid 4 people as best as possible. If he interacted further with Basara, Yuki, Mio, or Takagawa, then he would be dragged into something. He just knew it. He also thought about the dream he had last night. It was definitely placed in his old world. He dreamed of an old man with purple eyes, white robes, and 2 horns on his forehead. It was a strange sight. The old man almost looked like an alien. He saw the dream through the eyes of one of his 2 sons. It was strange. It was almost like he had lived the life of the younger son until he was 12 years old or something like that. The younger brother was named Ashura and the older brother was named Indra. The details of the dream weren't so important right now. Naruto remembered the advances the older brother brought to the so-called ninju. He didn't know how that was possible, but he dreamed of the invention of the famous hand signs. Naruto saw how Indra used hand signs for different purposes. Because of him, people from the time of his dream could use chakras differently than to strengthen their bodies. He looked at his hands, stopped, put his school bag on the ground, and did one of those signs. He could feel how the chakra inside his body reacted. It was strange, completely foreign, but with a purpose at least. This was how he would describe it. He closed his eyes while he lifted his school bag off the ground. He began to walk again and thought, I guess I have a new training I will have to try. I can still remember all those different hand signs. When I think about it, just when I left the academy, there was something about those hand signs. He frowned when he realized he had left the academy when they were just about to learn everything about the hand signs he saw in his dreams. Every hand sign Indra invented was mesmerized in his brain. It was weird. He also felt his chakra was a little different than before. It was like the dream interacted with his real body. His chakra was still familiar, but not to the point that it was the same. It was still this large ocean with almost infinite chakra. Even when he could only use basic chakra usage, he still knew that he had more chakra than any other shinobi back in the Hidden Leaf Village. The vast chakra ocean inside his body was the same, but it was different in a way. He would find out what was going on with him, but before he could investigate this, he had to make it through the school day without being caught up in some bullshit from those 4 special people. When Naruto came to the school, there weren't many students yet. He was a little earlier than usual since he was restless. He couldn't get his dream out of his mind. His body was also restless. It was like he wanted him to do something. He didn't know yet what the something was, but he would find out. It could also be that he decided to leave the school earlier if his body would not calm down. He could ignore it for now, but the feeling was pretty intense. A few minutes after he entered the school grounds, he walked into the almost empty classroom. He was relieved when none of the 4 people he was cautious about weren't there yet. He sat on his chair and looked out the window. He had his place in the middle row directly at the window. Takagawa was sitting in the last row, Basara sat more centrally, Yuki sat before Naruto, and Mio sat 2 places behind him. He hummed a soft tune while he looked at some birds flying over the school grounds. He smiled when he saw the beauty of nature. It was always like this. He always enjoyed being in nature. He thought about going toward a forest he hadn't visited for 3 weeks. He could try out some things regarding his dream and his new knowledge. His ears twitched when the person who sat before him placed her bag on the chair. Naruto's gaze wandered for a second forward where Yuki was. Yuki wanted to sit but stopped when she saw Naruto's gaze. Good morning, Uzumaki, said Yuki. Yuki was a beautiful young woman with a slim yet endowed build with a far more notable big butt. She had light blue, shoulder-length hair that had a longer portion of her hair put into a braid on the left side of her face, as well as a single long strand of hair, also known in Japan as a hoge, and yellow eyes. She wore the uniform of her school, which resembled a white sailor uniform that had a black collar and black cuffs that had white horizontal stripes, an orange-colored tie hung from the edges of her collar, a short black skirt that had a single white stripe, long black socks that had a white stripe around her calves, and also maroon-colored shoes. Good morning, Nanaka, said Naruto with a smile. Even when he wanted to interact as little as possible with those 4, it would be too suspicious when he would not answer her like he usually did. Naruto was known in the class as a carefree guy who had a smile on his face most of the time. It would be weird if Naruto didn't smile when he greeted someone. Nanaka smiled back and nodded before sitting down and looking toward the front. Naruto directed his gaze toward the outside world again while he was glad everything was as always. Nanaka wouldn't speak with him for the rest of the day if everything remained as it was. Since Basara came into class, she always went straight for her childhood friend when either break time was or the end of the school day. Naruto just realized something. It could well be that Basara won't come to school today. Naruto saw Basara's injuries yesterday when he flew out of the building. With his injuries, it could well be that he would stay away from school today or for a few days to recover fully. He would have to wait and see how this would go. A little into the first lesson, Naruto was sure that Basara wouldn't come today. Mio also didn't show up yet. It would only make sense if I understood the situation around Basara, thought Naruto. With all the hinds he had gotten over the last week since Basara joined the school, he could assume that he protected Mio and fought for her. This would also explain why she was living with Basara. It would only be logical if Naruto thought about it a little more. He looked in her direction multiple times during the lessons. Well, he also looked in Yuki's direction during the lessons, but this wasn't the topic right now. Naruto could also be completely wrong. Well, whatever. It doesn't concern me, thought Naruto. He wrote something down. Mr. Sakazaki wrote on the blackboard when he saw how Yuki looked over her shoulder directly into his blue eyes. Naruto looked confused at Yuki and said, "Hey, Nanaka, everything okay?" Something was different than before. It couldn't only be the fact that Basara wasn't here today. Even before Basara joined the school, Yuki had never looked over her shoulder toward Naruto like she does now. "No, it's nothing," said Yuki before directing her gaze forth again. Naruto sighed and shook his head before concentrating on the lesson again. The topic Mr. Sakazaki was explaining would come up in the next exam. 40 minutes later, the bell rang, signaling the start of the first break for the day. Naruto put down his pen and stretched once before standing up. He talked with a classmate for a second before leaving the classroom. "Hey Uzumaki," said a classmate. Naruto stopped and looked behind him. "What's up?" asked Naruto. He and his classmate talked for a minute before Naruto continued on his way toward the roof. He was always there during break since no one came there beside him. While he walked through the corridors, he stopped. He narrowed his eyes, and his smile vanished when he could sense something weird. He closed his eyes, tapping into his reverse sight. His head turned to the side before he vanished and appeared 20 meters away. He was now behind a corner and opened his eyes, looking around the corner with caution. He just hoped the person didn't see him who walked down the corridor. Even before yesterday, he had always been cautious around this woman. The woman who walked along the corridor was the school nurse. Her name was Hisato Hasegawa, but everyone called her Ms. Hasegawa. Her beauty was not from this world if someone would describe her. Hisato was a stunningly attractive woman with sexy hip length, black hair that had bangs hanging on the right side with two ahogs, green eyes, a mole under her left eye, red round glasses, one earring on her left ear, and a voluptuous figure. She had very large, even larger than Mio Narusa's, and her butt was bigger than Yuki Nanaka's. Her work outfit consisted of a green knitted turtleneck, a tight black miniskirt, along with her cross-garter motif stockings, and her signature white lab coat. He didn't know what it was, but he knew this woman wasn't human. Whatever she was dangerous. His instinct told him to stay away from her, and his instinct mostly had a good reason. It was also the reason he survived the first encounter with the two Akatsuki members in the Elemental Nations. The second he saw those two, his instinct told him to run away and distract the two Akatsuki members. His eyes widened when Chisato stopped and looked toward Naruto, who hid behind the corner. "Uzumaki, could you please come out? I have a few questions for you," said Chisato Hasegawa while she stood 5 meters away from the corner. Naruto closed his eyes and sighed. He knew something would happen today. He didn't think it would have to do with the most wanted woman in the school. Mio and Yuki had their fan clubs, but Chisato Hasegawa was even more wanted and admired than the two school idols. Naruto walked around the corner and opened his eyes when he stood 2 meters before Chisato. "What can I help you with, Ms. Hasegawa?" asked Naruto politely. He would make sure to be polite and not to upset this woman before him. He knew that he could deal with most things in this world so far, but something inside him told him that he was just a tiny ant when it came to this woman. He didn't feel anything particularly powerful from her, but his instinct told him that. "I heard that you saw what happened with Basara at TMJM yesterday. I want to ask you a few questions regarding the supposed incident that occurred yesterday," said Chisato while looking into Naruto's blue eyes. Naruto didn't show it but became nervous when he heard this question. She couldn't know he saw what happened yesterday, even when it was only a tiny part of the entire fight between Basara and Takagawa. How did this woman even know that happened yesterday? He was sure that Chisato wasn't around when Basara and Takagawa were fighting on the street while Naruto hid behind some cars. He was using his reverse sight the entire time and would have felt Chisato if she had been there. "I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. The last time I saw TMJM was when I woke up at 5:30 p.m. and left the school. The last thing he told me was that he wanted to go to the infirmary. That was the last time I saw him," said Naruto. "Please follow me," said Chisato while she walked past Naruto toward the infirmary. Naruto furrowed his eyebrows in confusion. He pondered if he should walk away and ignore her request, but this would be too suspicious. He sighed and chuckled a little at the entire situation. As you wish, Ms. Hasegawa, said Naruto, turning around and following her. Might as well see what this is all about. I have the feeling this isn't entirely about TMJM, thought Naruto. Naruto entered the infirmary 3 minutes later and closed the sliding door before turning toward Chisato. Chisato sat at her desk and sorted through some documents before laying them to the side, turning around on her leather chair and looking into Naruto's blue eyes. Please take a seat, Uzumaki, said Chisato. Naruto sat down on the chair opposite her and asked, so what is this all about, Ms. Hasegawa? I wanted to speak to you since I noticed that you are different today. Did something happen and is everything okay? Asked Chisato. Naruto raised both eyebrows in surprise. He thought about many things that could come, but not this question. Yeah. I am okay. I don't know what should be different, but I would say I am as usual, said Naruto. With her green eyes, Chisato looked Naruto's body up and down, making him feel restless. It wasn't very comfortable, but being under the gaze of this powerful entity wasn't something he desired. He would like to stand up and charge out of the door, but this would make it clear he knew something was up with her. Naruto had a certain thought process for a brief second that he didn't like. He could only think about his dream and the change he felt inside him. He knew something was different with him after he woke up. Not just because of the new knowledge he got from the dream regarding the hand signs, but also because of the change in his chakra. Does she really know about this? Thought Naruto. His facial expression didn't change, but he had a feeling Chisato knew what he was thinking since she began to smile. Don't worry, Uzumaki. I am only concerned about your health. It is my duty as a school nurse to make sure every student is in a healthy condition. Whether physical or mental. You can go if you want, said Chisato. But if you ever need someone to speak to, you can come to me. I will always have an open ear for you. Naruto remained silent before chuckling. Oh, come on, Ms. Hasegawa. You don't make this easy for me. I think you know exactly what's going on with me. But don't worry, I am fine. This didn't affect me in any way negatively. It had the opposite effect, actually. I am in a better mode since this change happened, said Naruto with a smile. Chisato smiled while closing both eyes. Then I won't ask any longer, said Chisato, opening her eyes. I wanted to make sure you are okay since the presence inside you felt a little ominous, said Chisato. But please, don't think anything about it. If you ever want to talk to someone about this, you can always come to me. Chisato stood up and Naruto did the same. Both walked toward the sliding door and before Chisato could open the door, Naruto said, TMJM had a few bruises on his upper body. The injuries looked like they were from blunt force trauma, like a blow. He lost a good amount of blood but could stand up with some struggle. Chisato opened the door before she said, thank you Uzumaki. I am sorry to have used up your time. Naruto smiled and said, don't worry about it. The break is still going for a few minutes, so I can still relax a bit in the classroom before the next lesson begins. He walked out of the infirmary and said goodbye to Chisato. He didn't know why but wasn't cautious any longer when it came to Ms. Hasegawa. It was like his worries were all washed away while he talked with her. The more he talked with her, the more he began to trust her. He didn't even know why. Even his instinct remained silent now and didn't warn him about the school nurse. It was like a weight was lifted off his shoulders. He didn't know what was going on right now, but he wouldn't complain since it felt surprisingly good. He walked toward the classroom and when he sat, Yuki Nanaka came a few minutes later into the classroom. Uzumaki, where were you during the break? Asked Yuki. She stood beside her chair and looked at Naruto. I walked into Ms. Hasegawa. She wanted to ask me some questions about something. I was there for most of the break, answered Naruto. Oh, I see, said Yuki. Okay, would you be willing to meet me during the second break on the roof? Naruto smiled and said, sure, why not? Even when he felt like a weight was lifted off his shoulders, he still thought this day couldn't get better in an ironic way. He wanted to stay away from Yuki, but for whatever reason, she paid close attention to him today. Please recover fast, TMJM. Your childhood friend isn't like her usual self. I worry that she might know something about me. She could have seen me when I killed this weird fellow with the 6 black feather wings, thought Naruto. He prayed to God that Basara TMJM would come back and continue his role as the main protagonist in this live-action harem story. Otherwise, Naruto didn't know what might happen. He feared his peaceful life was in danger. He prayed to God that he could remain on the sidelines. Yuki nodded and sat down just before Mr. Sakazaki walked into the classroom, announcing the start of the next lesson. It wasn't long before the second break began and Naruto opened the door to the roof where Yuki was already waiting. She stood with her back to Naruto, looking over the city. Naruto closed the door behind him and walked toward Yuki. So, Nanaka. Why did you want to meet me here? Asked Naruto. He still hoped this was about something else. But he had this feeling she would ask him something he wouldn't like. Yuki turned around and had a sad look on her face. Naruto was once again surprised. What was it that every female he wanted to avoid surprised him? Hey, are you okay? Asked Naruto. Sorry, said Yuki before turning her head away for a few seconds, wiping away the single tear that slid down her left cheek. When she looked back, she seemed normal, but Naruto could tell she was sad or otherwise full of negative and unpleasant emotions. I wanted to speak with you about something specific, said Yuki. Naruto didn't react and waited for Yuki to continue her speech. I know that you have a sacred gear, said Yuki. She saw that his face had become stoic. His blue eyes narrowed slightly and she felt a light shiver running down her spine. I was on my way toward a location where a fallen angel was supposed to be. He had already killed 2 humans, and it was my responsibility to kill him to avoid further killing of innocent humans. I was surprised when I saw a bright light from a distance and heard the sound of a thunderclap even when the sky was free from any clouds. When I rounded the corner where the fallen angel was supposed to be, I saw how someone vanished in a yellow flash. It was only for a brief second, but I could see your whisker marks at the last moment before you vanished, said Yuki. I wanted to thank you, Uzumaki, said Yuki while bowing. And once again Naruto was surprised. What's going on today? Was everyone out of their mind to act so differently? Naruto couldn't get it. What was different today was that everyone he wanted to avoid took so much pleasure in talking to him and surprising him. No problem, said Naruto. Yuki raised her head and could see his confusion. It is my job as a heroine to protect the humans from the supernatural world, but I failed. The least I could do is to thank you. I also wanted to ask you what kind of sacred gear you have. I am sure you have reasons why you hide your abilities from others. You never harmed any human or showed any intention of using others, said Yuki. Naruto sighed deeply, raising his hands and placing them behind his head while he walked to the railing, looking over the city. Yuki looked at Naruto and could see the conflict in his eyes. Naruto glanced at Yuki and asked, would it be okay if I refuse? I simply want to stay on the sideline and not get involved. I also must confess that this fallen angel you mentioned attacked me and I only defended myself. So I didn't kill him because I was protecting someone. If he would have never attacked me, I wouldn't have killed him. If now, out of self-defense or because of other reasons, the important fact is that you killed the fallen angel, said Yuki. Naruto hummed while looking toward the sky. I guess, said Naruto. But I have to say it would be necessary for you to show me your sacred gear. I have a duty to protect the humans, and if you ever decide to harm someone innocent, I would need to fight you, Uzumaki. I must insist that you show me your sacred gear, said Yuki. Naruto nodded in understanding. He didn't know what she meant by this entire heroine thing, but it must be a duty she had to fulfill. It would be better to simply show her Narukami, since she would not stop before he would show it to her. I would ask you if we do this after school. I don't want Takagawa to see me, said Naruto. You know that someone can feel the sacred gear when it's summoned, and Takagawa doesn't know about me yet, at least I hope so. If I summon my sacred gear right now, Takagawa will know that I have a sacred gear. Takagawa? I don't understand, said Yuki with narrowed eyes. It seemed like Naruto knew something she didn't. Was Takagawa a danger? I don't know what he is, but he is someone I want to avoid as best as possible, said Naruto. I also don't want to know what he is. The less I know, the better. I want to stay away from this entire mess that is going on right now. But I can tell you that he attacked TMJM yesterday. He fought with him and TMJM knows what he is, said Naruto. I guess TMJM didn't come today because he is still recovering from his injuries from the fight with Takagawa. Yuki narrowed her eyes when she heard this information. So the devil we fought was Takagawa. I didn't feel anything from him. Not even today in class. How is it possible for a devil to suppress his aura so perfectly? Is he really this strong? Thought Yuki. I see, said Yuki. Don't worry, I will deal with Takagawa and make sure he won't know about your sacred gear. As long as you show me everything you can do. Naruto nodded and said, as you wish. I would say we have a deal. The bell rang and Naruto said, I would say we go back. Yuki nodded and they walked back to the classroom. To avoid any weird reactions from the boys in the school, he let Yuki walk first before he walked down the stairs. Both entered the classroom separately to sit down. Naruto sighed, looking out the window. I guess I should be happy that only Nanaka knows of my sacred gear. She promised me to hide my abilities from others and not tell anyone if I show her what I can do after school, thought Naruto. To be honest, it could have been worse. She could have told Basara, Mio, or other comrades about it. The rest of the school day was boring. Naruto and Yuki were walking away from the school together toward an isolated spot where he could show Yuki what he could do after school ended. Both walked in silence the entire time, having no real conversation topic to talk about. Naruto walked a bit away from Yuki when both were inside a forest. He turned around and held his left hand to his side. Lightning surrounded him before it wandered toward his left hand. The lightning transformed into a sheathed katana with a white sheath, yellow handle, and black oval handguard. Naruto held Narukami before him so Yuki could see his sacred gear. This is my sacred gear, Narukami. It allows me to manipulate lightning, said Naruto. A few lightning bolts danced around the sword before they vanished. "I see," said Yuki, watching the sacred gear. "Did you also use a lightning attack to kill the fallen angel?" Naruto nodded and said, "Yes. I used lightning together with the sword to kill the guy with a strong sword slash. You have seen the result of my attack with your own eyes." Naruto's sacred gear vanished again, and he said, "That would be it. You can think about the different ways someone can use lightning manipulation in a fight. It is very versatile." Yuki nodded and said, "Okay. I think I understand everything. Since you fulfilled your end of the deal, I will fulfill mine, and don't tell anyone about your sacred gear and your abilities." "I appreciate it," said Naruto while he smiled. "If this is all, I would say we will see each other tomorrow." Yuki remained silent for a second before she opened her mouth. Naruto wanted to turn away before he saw her action. He stopped his turning around and asked, "Was something else, Nanaka?" Yuki closed her mouth and shook her head. "No. It's nothing. I wish you a good day, Uzumaki." "Thanks, you too," said Naruto. He smiled one last time at her before turning away and walking away from her. She stood there, deep in thought. She didn't know why, but she would have liked to talk more with her classmate. It wasn't like she was interested in him or something like that. She just felt an unknown warmth when she was around him since today. She couldn't describe it. The moment she stepped into the classroom this morning, she felt a pleasant warmth emanating from Naruto. It was like a gentle breeze in the summer. She felt down because she couldn't protect Basara on top of the roof when Takagawa attacked them. She only knew now that it was Takagawa after Naruto told her about him. She trained very hard all those years, but still couldn't protect the important people in her life. When she was around Naruto, she could forget her sorrow because of the constant warm feeling that came from Naruto. She looked up into the sky, wondering what she should do. She thought about it and got an idea. She headed toward her home to get some medicine that was very effective when used on heroes. Basara may not be a member of the hero clan, but he still had the blood of a hero inside him. The medicine would help him recover faster. This was the least she could do. Naruto walked through the streets toward his apartment and was relieved to some extent. If everything would turn out the way he hoped, then he could continue to remain on the sidelines and watch Basara TMJM's harem adventure unfold. When Naruto was at home, he watched some TV since he didn't have any more motivation to train today after everything that happened today. It wasn't long before he was sleeping. Unbeknownst to him, the chakra inside Naruto began to move in unnatural ways before it calmed down, and this was the moment Naruto found himself in a familiar setting again. He saw the world through the eyes of the boy named Ashura, but this time, he was a little older. Only time would tell what these dreams were all about. Naruto's eyes shot open, and he jumped up in his bed. He breathed heavily and fast. He had sweat all over his body. His eyes were wide open, focused on the one spot he looked at. Naruto stood there on his bed, ready for an attack, but this attack never came. It took him 2 minutes until he realized what he was actually doing. He blinked a few times and looked around, snapping out of some trance. He gasped and held a hand over his heart. He didn't know what was going on right now. His heart was aching and beating like crazy. He gritted his teeth, focusing on his breathing. His breathing calmed down when he became master over his reflexes again. He closed his eyes, regulating his breath, and could slow down his heartbeat again. After he got his body under control again, he opened his eyes and looked at his hands. What the fuck was that? I can't remember anything that happened in the dream, thought Naruto. There was also his body. Even when he got him under control again, his body craved for something. Naruto could feel how every muscle in his body twitched and shook. He looked outside and saw the night. He didn't hesitate and dressed up before walking out of his bedroom, taking a bottle of water with him. He wore black pants and an orange t-shirt before placing both feet inside his black boots. He opened his apartment door and felt the cold air from the night. But it didn't affect him. His body was screaming at Naruto to do something. What exactly wasn't clear to Naruto. He stepped outside, locked the door, and channeled chakra into his legs, jumping far away. His eyes widened when he saw how much chakra he accidentally used and the distance he traveled with this one jump. He landed on a roof and pushed himself further away, jumping the same distance. He didn't even know where he wanted to go. He had this feeling that his body would lead him to the location he had to be. He felt how the cold air crashed into his face, his upper body, lower body, and arms. He didn't know why he wasn't affected by it. His entire perception of his surroundings was different than usual. He looked to the side, seeing a little bird trying to hide from a cat. He could feel something and turned his gaze toward another angle. He could see a group of two walking in the moonlight. They were holding hands, most likely a couple if Naruto had to guess. When he landed, he pushed himself further away and looked up. His ocean blue eyes were mirroring the moon. The moon was almost full. From its looks, it should only be 2 or 3 nights away before the moon was full. Naruto landed in the park a few minutes later. He looked around and was surrounded by trees. Before him was a building with some pillars around it. Naruto didn't know why, but he had the feeling that his body wanted to be there. The most logical thing would be to train like usual, but he had a guess. Naruto raised both hands and placed them together in one of the 12 hand signs he remembered from his dreams. He also remembered the names of the 12 hand signs. Rat, ox, tiger, hare, dragon, snake, horse, ram, monkey, bird, dog, and boar. Naruto could feel how his chakra responded. He had trained to control his chakra like a maniac back in the elemental nations, and he even trained to control it from time to time in this world. He could feel exactly how it responded. It was an unfamiliar feeling. After he did the ox sign, he made a ram sign. He made 3 other hand signs and ended in a tiger sign. He could still remember when Indra presented his creation before others. Those were the exact hand signs he did before he presented his hard work. Naruto held his hand before him and opened his closed fist. When his hand was completely open, a yellow-orange flame burst to live for a second. Naruto's eyes widened when he saw what he had just done. That's his body was shaking, but not because it was craving something. Naruto had finally understood it. It wasn't his body per se that craved action, it was his changed chakra. He still didn't know what had changed with his chakra. He could still control it like before, and the amount didn't change. The density of his chakra also didn't change. So what was it? He couldn't figure it out. But this wasn't important right now. He had a wide smile on his face, successfully creating something out of his chakra like a flame. When he was still back in the Konoha Academy, he always wanted to use ninjutsu, which means you could create anything literally. From breathing out giant fireballs to creating water barriers to changing the landscape and other amazing things. Naruto formed another hand sign and couldn't stop smiling when he felt how his chakra responded. It was just amazing how a change in the hand position could influence the flow of chakra. Naruto made 2 more hand signs and ended in the snake sign. "Whoa," said Naruto when the ground shook slightly and a little boulder appeared out of it. It wasn't high or anything like that. It was like a buried stone in the ground. When he untangled his hands, the stone sank back into the ground. Naruto grinned and thought, this is awesome. When Naruto started with his experimentation, it was 1 AM, but now it was almost 6 AM, and he would have to get ready for school soon. Even after everything he tried, he was still nowhere near exhausted. When he said he had almost infinite chakra, then that wasn't an exaggeration. Naruto could proudly say that he made some discoveries over the 5 hours he spent trying different things, different hand sign series, and other thoughts regarding his chakra. He quickly understood that the tiger sign at the end was often linked to some fire he would create. The snake sign, on the other hand, was linked to earth-based things like moving the earth a little or lifting stones. He also realized pretty quickly that he couldn't just try to make any hand signs after another without being cautious. After 20 minutes of trying out different things, he almost set himself on fire. He did a more extended hand sign series and ended in the tiger sign, letting fire burst out from under Naruto. It was only due to his sharpened reflexes, superhuman speed, and reaction time that he could dodge to the side. It was a lucky thing that he invented total concentration breathing. If he hadn't a physical boost from his total concentration breathing, he would have set himself on fire. It was the moment he calmed down and tried not to be like a little kid. He analyzed everything he felt during those 20 minutes, what he discovered, and what he could do without killing himself. He noticed that some techniques he used during the 5 hours used up more chakra than others. He stuck to a little hand sign series, so the chakra used should normally be equal. He managed to create something with every element that existed. He even knew that there were 5 elements: fire, water, earth, lightning, and wind. When he created a wind technique in which a gentle breeze began to blow around him, he used almost no chakra at all. It was at that moment that he had a flashback to the dream he couldn't remember at first. In his dream, Ashura was training with his older brother Indra, and it was said that everyone was naturally drawn to one element. It was linked to the person's chakra. The person's chakra was naturally linked to one element. Naruto could only guess that his natural affinity was the wind. He found it ironic that his natural affinity was the wind, the element that was linked with liberty, something he had never had in his old life. When he came back to his apartment to eat something, he thought about all the things he discovered. His chakra also calmed down. It seemed like it was satisfied with what Naruto did in those 5 hours. But it is strange, it only calmed down when I realized something like my wind affinity. It was like my chakra had its own subconscious and tried to make me understand those things by being restless, but this is impossible, right? Thought Naruto. He was standing in his kitchen and cooked something. He thought about it a little more while he cooked, ate, showered, and dressed up for school. When he wore his school uniform, he saw something out of the corner of his eye. He raised his right hand in a flash and thought he had seen something like a round object on his hand. I knew it, thought Naruto. He had seen it and reacted soon enough, raising his hand so he could get a better sight of it before the symbol on his palm vanished. It was like a sun. He got a headache when he saw an image of an older Ashura standing before his older brother. Both had weapons in their hands, facing each other. Most of the images aren't clear, but the one thing Naruto sees is the symbol of his palm. It was the same symbol Naruto had 20 seconds ago on his palm. The image vanished again, and Naruto gasped, feeling a surge of energy running through his body. Arg. He cursed when he felt the pain for an entire minute. It was almost impossible to keep quiet, but he gripped his teeth and fought through the pain. Every muscle in his body tensed up when he felt how this energy spread through his body. It was like this energy was fusing with his chakra. When the pain went away, he fell to his knee, gasping for air. He couldn't breathe for the entire minute. He was on the ground, on all fours, and looked at the ground with sweat running down his forehead before falling onto the ground. He raised his right hand and saw it again, the sun symbol was back. He stood up while breathing in a lot of air to fill up his oxygen tanks. What the hell is this? First, my chakra felt different, and now this symbol appeared, which also Ashura had. Did the change in my chakra trigger this symbol? Thought Naruto. Have I now the same chakra as Ashura, or what the fuck is going on? Now that the symbol has appeared, everything is fine, like the pain I had just now never happened. I feel even better than usual. I really need to investigate this further after I was in school. He opened the door and walked out. After he had closed and locked the door, he walked toward the school. His thoughts were all about the things he had experienced and found out. When he came to school, he walked through the main entrance of the school building. He tried not to think about it during his time at school, since he still needed to learn for the following exams. When he walked through the building, he saw a few students. He spoke with two of them while he walked to his class, and when he was in his classroom, he sat down and looked outside. Naruto could see Basara, Yuki, and Mio walking together toward the school building. Seems like TMJM already recovered, thought Naruto. He looked at his right hand, which was closed to a fist. He didn't want anyone to see the new symbol he had on his palm. He felt that his chakra changed a little since he got this symbol on his palm. He opened his fist slightly and looked at the sun-shaped symbol on his right hand. He closed the hand again, looking outside. He wished he knew what this was all about. Why did he have the same symbol as Ashura on his right palm? Why did he have these dreams? Why did his chakra change all of a sudden? He could only wait and hope that his dreams would answer those questions. This was the only way he saw it right now. Every piece of information he knew was from his dreams. The hand signs, the history of Ashura and his brother so far, the father of the two, the different things one could do with chakra, and so forth. He looked at the door when Basara, Yuki, and Mio entered the classroom. Everyone was looking at them, and like usual, the boys glared at Basara. Naruto and Takagawa were the only boys in the class who didn't glare at Basara. Oh yeah, Takagawa was also in the classroom. He was already there when Naruto entered. He read a light novel the entire time. The title of the light novel was Attack on Titan. Naruto looked outside again. There were still a few minutes until Mr. Sakazaki would come to start the lesson. "Hello, Uzumaki," said Yuki. Naruto looked at Yuki and smiled at her like usual. "Morning, Nanaka." Yuki smiled at him and sat down afterward, looking toward Basara. Naruto wanted to direct his gaze outside, but he saw how Basara looked at him. He looked at Basara and raised an eyebrow. He shrugged and looked outside. Nothing special happened until the first break. Naruto was on the roof during the break. He was lying there with his hands behind his back. He looked at the clouds and let his thoughts flow. He smiled and closed his eyes, feeling content with how things turned out. He didn't know why he got this symbol on his palm, why his chakra changed a bit, or why he had those dreams. The only thing he knew was that it helped him in the long run. He wasn't sure yet what this symbol could do, but he felt that it wasn't just for show. He would find out sooner or later. The sun's rays were hitting his face, letting him feel the warm sensation only provided by the sun. The warmth someone felt when sun rays hit him was different than the warmth someone felt when he stood beside a fire. This warm sensation was always pleasant. Naruto's ears twitched when he heard the door to the roof. He opened one eye, looking to the side where the door was. He closed his eyes again when he saw who walked on the roof. Not that it surprised him. He was sure they would come to the roof sooner or later. "Uzumaki," said Basara. "MHM." Naruto's eyes remained closed while his smile never left his expression. He lay there, completely at ease with everything. At least, this was how it looked like. "Sorry to bother you, but I wanted to thank you for the warning you gave me the other day," said Basara. "No problem. The boys in our class can be a little jealous," said Naruto. Well, a little would be an understatement. They were jealous as fuck. Basara chuckled a little, seeing the joke in the statement. "I also wanted to speak with you about something else," said Basara. "Help yourself," said Naruto. He was still lying there with his eyes closed. It was clear that he was in a position where he didn't want to move because it felt good to lay there with the warm sensation of the sun on his face. "I am sorry, Uzumaki," said Yuki. Naruto knew Basara didn't come alone to the roof. Two other people came with him on the roof. Most likely Yuki and Mio. Naruto's smile vanished and he opened one eye. Why are you apologizing, Nanaka? You did nothing wrong, said Naruto. I have broken the deal. I told the two of your sacred gear, I am sorry, said Yuki. Naruto only looked at her with his one open eye. She could see the disappointment in his open eye. Naruto closed his eye and said, I see. Wait a moment, Yuki Basara wanted to defend Yuki, but Naruto cut him off. Stop it, TMJM, said Naruto, rising into a sitting position. He stood up and opened both eyes. He had a stoic gaze and a completely different facial expression from the usual laid-back Naruto everyone knew. He normally smiled most of the time. I don't care why she broke the deal we made. The important fact is that she broke the deal. I was willing to show her my sacred gear, but in exchange, she would tell not a single soul of my abilities. I don't want to have anything to do with your problems or the entire situation you all are in, said Naruto. He looked Basara in the eyes before looking into Yuki's eyes. When there is something I despise, it's someone who breaks their promises. Promises are made not to be broken. It shows that you can't be trusted, said Naruto before walking past the two school idols and Basara. Oh yeah, there would be one last thing, said Naruto when he reached the door. Don't try to pull me into something I have nothing to do with. Whatever it may be. If you ignore my warning and try it, expect a corresponding reaction from me. He walked into the school building, closing the door behind him. Yuki looked on the ground. Nanaka-mio looked at Yuki, worried. Even when both hated each other from the start, they were at the beginning of forming a relationship, or at least they wouldn't fight each other anymore. It's okay. I knew what I risked when I told you both of his abilities. It's my responsibility, and I will deal with it, said Yuki. Listen, Yuki, said Basara. Yuki looked up at Basara. You only did this because you wanted to protect us from a possible danger. The fact is that we basically don't know anything about Naruto Uzumaki other than his usual behavior. Don't worry, we will manage to come clean somehow, it's the least we can do. Yuki smiled at Basara and nodded. But she looked past him toward the door where Naruto vanished. Even when she smiled she was deeply disappointed in herself. What Naruto said was true and she didn't even know why, but his words struck her hard. It was something everyone should know. A promise was something not meant to be broken, and yet many people didn't mind when someone broke a promise, as long as there was a good reason. But when Naruto looked at her, she could see he was really disappointed. He told her to her face that he didn't care why she broke the promise. The fact alone that she broke a promise, something not meant to be broken, was enough for him to look at her so harshly. The way he said those words, when there is something I despise, it's someone who breaks their promises. Promises are made not to be broken. It shows that you can't be trusted, said Naruto. It hit someone deep inside. If someone else had said this she was sure it wouldn't have affected her so greatly. She saw it in the reaction from Basara and Mio. Both of them also were affected in ways normally thought impossible. Naruto had an effect on someone that couldn't be explained. Naruto thought Yuki. Naruto sighed deeply. I should have known. Even in this world, you can't trust someone with so much personal information. I should have stayed away and ignored those four, thought Naruto. He stopped when he thought about Basara, Mio and Yuki. He had a good relationship with all three. He laughed with them multiple times and even did something after school with them. He shook his head and kept walking. He didn't want to stay in school for today. He didn't even want to meet Chisato Hasegawa right now. He could tell she was on her way to him. He vanished from his spot and left the school with superhuman speed. He simply wanted to be left alone. For him, a promise was what it was supposed to be and not how it was used in the modern era in this world. Promises were thrown out without thinking. They were broken without any form of hesitation and everyone accepted it. But Naruto wasn't like the others. If he made a promise, he would do anything to hold it, even if it meant his death. He thought he could trust Yuki, but it turned out this wasn't the case. His trust was broken, and he was shown yet again why he never trusted anyone in his last life. Maybe he was too good-natured or something else, but one thing was for sure. If anyone wanted his trust back, they would need to earn it. He appeared outside of Tokyo and narrowed his eyes. He looked to the side, seeing some monster. It looked like a fusion of a human and a spider. The monster was chasing a little cat. Naruto growled in frustration when he couldn't ignore the situation. Narukami, said Naruto. Narukami appeared after lightning surrounded Naruto and flew toward Naruto's left hand. The lightning transformed into Narukami and Naruto didn't hesitate. He tensed his legs while he simultaneously channeled lightning energy into Narukami's sheath. He charged forth, leaving behind some sparks of lighting on the ground. The monster didn't even know what happened before his head was severed from his body. Naruto appeared behind the monster while sheathing Narukami again. Naruto looked over his shoulder and looked at the cat. He knew this wasn't a normal cat. Stay away from trouble and don't follow me. If you do, you will have the same fate as this monster, said Naruto before yellow lightning surrounded him. He vanished in a yellow flash, leaving behind some sparks of lightning on the ground. When Naruto appeared before his door, Narukami spoke to him. Do you want to talk? Asked Narukami. Naruto remained silent while he opened his door. When he stepped inside and closed the door behind him, he said, "What is there to talk? You saw everything, and you know what I think about breaking a promise." Yuki Nanaka decided to break her promise to me. She had the choice and chose to break the promise. "I won't say anything more about this topic," said Naruto while he walked toward his couch. He turned on the TV and began watching an anime to distract himself. "As you wish. I will let you alone for now," said Narukami before the mental link ended. Naruto remained silent and continued watching. "Interesting," said a male voice. The man was in a fancy-looking master bedroom. He was sitting on a king-size bed and held a glass of wine in his right hand while he fondled the breast of a young woman with his left hand. The young woman had horns on her head, signaling that she was a young female devil. The man also had 2 horns sticking out of his head. It was clear this person was a devil, a strong one at that. The devil was a tall man who wore a red jacket with yellow padded shoulders. He had pointy ears, white hair with a matching beard, and purple eyes. "I never thought I would see the forgotten sacred gear again," said the devil. Before him was a magic-created transmission. It showed how Naruto killed the fallen angel with 6 wings with just 1 slash attack and simultaneously destroyed the walls around him. The person who created the transmission was a female devil. The female devil was a tall, tan-skinned and white-haired young woman with a slim yet shapely figure and gold-green eyes. She had a rabbit tail and rabbit ear-shaped horns. "Yes, Lord Zolgear. This is Naruto Uzumaki, a human who goes to the same school as Mionerus," said the female devil. "I see. This is indeed very interesting," said Zolgear while he chuckled. "I always wondered what happened with Narukami, the sword of the thunder god. It seems I must change my plans a bit to get the power of Mionerus and the sacred gear, which was lost for thousands of years. Go and observe Naruto Uzumaki and let Basara TMJM in the hands of Lars, Zest. Basara TMJM hasn't shown any significant powers so far. Mionerus is in safe hands until we make our move," said Zolgear, taking a sip from his wine glass. "As you command, Lord Zolgear," said Zest. The magical transmission ended and she bowed, vanishing in a teleportation circle. Zolgear smirked while he took another sip, thinking how much power he would hold in the future. He would rule over the Demon Lord faction very soon. "I look forward to meeting you in person, Naruto Uzumaki," said Zolgear while he focused his attention on the young female devil at his side. "You don't know how much I look forward to it." He placed the wine glass to the side and began treating his guest. The moans of the young female devil could be heard until she screamed in pleasure. Naruto looked around. He knew he was dreaming again. It wasn't like before when he watched through the eyes of Ashura. He was standing in some forest with his own body and could move his body as he wished. He heard a voice behind him. "Naruto Uzumaki," said a familiar voice. Naruto turned around and saw an adult version of Ashura standing there, smiling at Naruto. "Ashura?" asked Naruto. Ashura walked forward and stopped a meter before him. He held his hand out where the sun symbol was on. Naruto looked at his palm and afterward at Ashura. "Lay your hand on mine. You will understand everything," said Ashura. Naruto didn't hesitate and put his hand with the same sun symbol on his palm on Ashura's hand. Naruto's eyes widened when everything around him changed. Ashura and Naruto were now standing in some void where 2 symbols were shining on the horizon. There was a sun and a half moon. Or at least Naruto thought it was a sun. He could feel something strange when he looked at the half moon. The scenery changed again and Naruto got wide-eyed when he recognized the scenery. This place was definitely Konoha, or, more like, Konoha. The massive stone formation and this forest were too familiar with Naruto. But instead of Konoha, there was only forest before the stone formation. There were no Hokage faces hammered into the stone and no village, only stone and trees. "Why are you showing me this?" asked Naruto. He looked Ashura into his eyes, looking for answers. "Why did you give me this power? What do you want?" Ashura closed a hand completely around Naruto and smiled. Naruto's eyes widened when he saw unknown memories from someone who looked exactly like him. It was like Naruto was looking at the memories from another version of himself. The most significant difference was that the version he saw of himself in the memories became a genin and made friends. He saw the entire life of the person in a few seconds, up to the point where he also got this symbol from Haguro Motsutsuki. Naruto gasped when the memories finished. It was very taxing for the brain to process so much information. "Was this another version of myself? The version who made it and didn't die?" asked Naruto. "Yes. There exists not only the dimension we see, multiple dimensions exist. Every dimension is somewhat the same, but has differences. But there is one important fact. You were supposed to stop the person you saw at the end of the memories, my grandmother. You were the child of the prophecy, meant to save the world, but someone played God and changed the supposed outcome of your story. No matter which dimension, every version of yourself saved the world," said Ashura. "There are versions where you are a woman, but this wouldn't change the outcome. It didn't even have to do with fate or destiny. It's just how you are." No matter which version of yourself, you are always the same. Someone who brings out the best in other people, someone who never gives up, and someone who does everything to keep his promises. Those are the qualities of a hero, said Ashura. Naruto furrowed with his eyebrows, hearing all this. This is all good, but this doesn't answer my questions. I am no longer in the elemental nation since I died there. I am in a new world without the danger of your grandmother. So why did you show yourself, and why did you give me this power? Asked Naruto. He understood now what this symbol was on his right palm. He knew what he could do with it. He saw the other version of himself using this power. He wanted to open his mouth, but a loud bang was heard in the distance. Ashura looked apologetic at Naruto. I am sorry, but my time has come. I gave you everything I could. The rest is up to you. I know you will use this power for something good. After all, you are a hero, said Ashura while he slowly began to fade away. Hey, wait. Said Naruto. I still have so many questions. Naruto's eyes shot open when the dream ended. He raised himself into a sitting position, remembering everything Ashura told him and showed him. He looked at his right palm. No, you were wrong. Maybe every other version of myself is a hero, but not me, thought Naruto. Naruto wore his school uniform while he walked toward the academy. He stopped on the way, seeing an injured bird on the ground. He could also be dead, Naruto didn't know. Naruto looked left and right before crossing the street. He walked to the tree where the injured bird lay on the ground. No one was looking at the bird. No one cared what happened to him. Naruto placed his bag on the ground and crouched down. He gently picked the injured bird up with his left hand. He could feel the body of the bird still moving, which meant it was still alive. Let's see if I can really do what I saw in the memories of my other version, thought Naruto. He placed his right hand with the sun-shaped symbol on the bird and closed his eyes. He concentrated, and when his eyes snapped open, he frowned when the body of the bird twitched once. Naruto breathed out heavily and raised his right hand to reveal the bird. He looked at the bird and saw how the bird didn't move before the eyes of the bird snapped open and it jumped up on both of his feet. So it's true, I can now also heal someone. As long as the person isn't dead, I can guarantee that the person will survive when I use this new power, thought Naruto. The bird chirped while jumping on Naruto's left palm around. Naruto chuckled when he saw the display. He stood up slowly, but the bird didn't fly away immediately. The bird was rubbing its head on the inside of Naruto's thumb. Naruto stroked the bird a little before the bird chirped one last time, flying away, but not before circling 2 times around Naruto. Naruto looked after the bird with a smile. This is a nice feeling, thought Naruto. It felt really good helping the injured animal. Maybe he should go into nature and search for injured animals. With his new ability, he could help them without any trouble. Naruto continued his walk and thought back to the memories he saw from his other version. The other version of him used 2 techniques that caught Naruto's eye. I think it was called Rasen Rasengan. No, wait, that's not it, thought Naruto. He closed one eye, thinking about it. Naruto saw the entire life from his other version, that was true, but it was all in a few seconds. He couldn't remember everything he saw in the memories from his other version. Ashura focused on a few key moments that let Naruto understand what different was like the other version of himself, who graduated from the academy and became a genin. He made many friends and saved other people on his journey. He almost skipped most of the things in his memories until the Great War Naruto saw in the memories. Naruto could remember that the other version of himself used some spinning sphere that had a destructive ability. It looked like it could drill through literally anything. He would have to try to recreate it. Having something like that at his disposal would be very effective. This way, he would always have a powerful close combat technique that could kill most enemies with one hit. Now I remember. It's called the Rasengan. Thought Naruto. Besides the Rasengan, he also noticed the ability to create solid clones. Being able to create solid clones was another very useful and handy ability to have. With Naruto's chakra reserves, he could create thousands of clones if he managed to recreate the clone technique that his other version used. I think he called it the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, shadow clone technique, thought Naruto. Naruto hoped he could remember it more clearly when the school day came to an end in a few hours and he went to training. His usual training was mostly physical exercises, chakra control training, and meditation. But with all the new knowledge he had another priority. He would try to recreate the Rasengan and the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. When Naruto entered the classroom 20 minutes later, he could see Takagawa looking at him. Naruto had the hunch that he was suspicious of him, or he knew of Naruto's abilities or his sacred gear. Whatever it may be, it wasn't pleasant. Naruto sat down in his chair and looked outside. While he waited, he tried to form a plan in his head, one that would be to approach his training in the most effective way. "Morning, Uzumaki," said a female voice. Naruto's ear twitched when he heard the voice. It wasn't Yuki like usual. He directed his gaze toward the source of the feminine voice and raised an eyebrow when he saw Mio Nerus. "Morning, Nerus," said Naruto. "Can I help you with something?" "No. Everything is okay," said Mio while she smiled. Naruto's eyebrows sank a little, seeing the fake smile directly. He looked around and couldn't see either Yuki Nanaka or Basara TMJM. Something was up and he was sure it had something to do with her unusual behavior. I just never said hello personally. I wanted to do this since you helped me a few times with homework in the past, said Mio. Naruto chuckled and said, you don't need to thank me for that. We are classmates, said Naruto. Mio looked surprised at Naruto. She didn't even know why she was there and spoke to him. She thought he would ignore her and didn't even look. After his reaction yesterday, she really thought that he wouldn't speak with her. But why he spoke to her wasn't what puzzled her. She didn't even have the intention to walk over to him to speak with him in the first place. She wanted to enjoy her last day in school before she would deal with Takagawa personally. Even when she knew she had little chance to win, but she would not let others get injured again because of her. Last night, Yuki and Basara were injured in an intense battle. She didn't know who attacked them both, but it could only be Takagawa after she heard of Yuki. She told Basara and her not only about Naruto's sacred gear, but also about Takagawa. Basara got a little beating afterward that he didn't inform both of them, but it could only be Takagawa who attacked them, right? There was no other way this could have been someone else. Maria was home caring for both heroes, who always protected her. Mio lied to Maria, saying that she would try to get Naruto on their side even when this was a lie. She went to school with the intention of enjoying her last day at school. After school ends, she confronts Takagawa and either defeats him or goes with him. He already gave her a choice. Everything would be over if she went with him into the demon world. But back on topic, why did she walk over to Naruto? She could only guess that it had something to do with the warmth he was radiating. It was like standing in the sunlight. It spread through her body without any form of resistance. She tried to ignore the feeling and walk to her chair and sit down, but her body didn't want to. She walked toward Naruto because it made her feel better than before. Her grief and sorrow were being washed away to some degree, and she felt better when she stood near him. This was the reason she was now here, greeting Naruto. Okay. But I still wanted to greet you at least once, said Mio. Well, good morning, Naruto, said Naruto. It was strange that first Yuki and now Mio were approaching him. It was like a bad dream. He smiled at Mio but was suspicious of this entire situation. He didn't want to raise suspicion from others. He greeted everyone with a smile and talked with them usually. Was this some tactic to get him on their side, or why was Mio Naruto now alone in school and without her protector? Why was she talking to him? Why did she fake her smile like that? But most importantly, what was this feeling he didn't like? He had an uncertain feeling in his gut. It was like his gut was trying to tell him something, but he couldn't decipher the message. Why are you even talking to me after yesterday? I really thought I made it clear that I don't want to be dragged into your problems, thought Naruto. I even warned you that you should not try to drag me into something. Just stay at TMJM's side and everything will be fine. Good morning, said Mio with a smile. Do you want to fucking kidding me? Thought Naruto, desperate. Yet again, a beautiful woman he wanted to avoid surprised him and even talked to him. Was someone messing with his life? Like some higher being who watched his life through a TV and could interfere. Naruto Uzumaki was so surprised because the smile she was using right now wasn't fake like the first one she used. The negative emotions in her voice and her fake smile weren't present anymore. She looked genuinely happy when she greeted him. Like this was a big achievement she made. Naruto waited for a few seconds and got confused. Mio Naruto stood there and nothing. She only smiled and didn't move at all. His classmates were also beginning to stare at both of them. Hey Naruto, was something else? Asked Naruto. Mio seemed to snap out of some kind of trance. She flushed and turned around pretty quickly, walking to her seat and sitting down. Naruto raised an eyebrow but shrugged, but before he could look forward, he saw Takagawa's gaze. Naruto looked over his shoulder to the back, where the one guy he had managed to stay away from was. Takagawa only chuckled and looked toward the door when Mr. Sakazaki entered the room. Naruto also concentrated on his sensei since he began the first lesson. Naruto was writing something down 20 minutes after the first lesson started when he could see something from the corner of his eyes. He closed his eyes, tapped into his reverse sight ability for a second, and raised both eyebrows when he felt what Mio's intentions were. Reverse sight made it possible for Naruto to perceive not only others' movements, but also their intentions and the mental state of others. It was a convenient ability to have. What he could perceive of Mio was he couldn't even explain what he perceived from her. There was nothing he thought at first. He really thought she tried to get close to him because she wanted to drag him into her problems. But no, there was no such intention. She just wanted to stay near Naruto because it felt good when he interpreted it right. No interior motives were there, just a genuine intention to be near him. Then there was her mental state. It was a mess. There was no other way to describe it. She was in some kind of depression, to hold it shortly. Sadness, anger, worry, and other kind of negative emotions were present. There were a few positives, but the negative emotions outweighed the positives by a mile. He opened his eyes, remaining silent. He didn't know what to make out of this. He furrowed with his eyebrows when he realized that he began to worry about Mioneris. He concentrated on the lesson again, trying to forget what he just felt from Mioneris. It didn't concern him anyway since Basara would protect her when he was back. It was his job to protect his harem. Naruto was a side character in the harem story of Basara TMJM and his harem. Naruto only needed to stay away from them so that he could continue to live a peaceful life. He glanced for a second toward Mio and could see that she was looking at him. When she saw his gaze, she flushed a little in embarrassment and looked away. Naruto looked forward again and listened to Mr. Sakazaki. What am I even doing? Stupid, thought Naruto. Maybe it was better to leave the academy earlier, like yesterday, to start his training. It would help him forget about the mess he felt when he used his reverse side ability. When the break came, Naruto stood up and walked out of the classroom. He looked back before he left the classroom. He only wanted to make sure no one was following him. Especially Mioneris or Yahiro Takagawa. When he was sure no one was following him, he made his way toward the roof. "Uzumaki," said Chisato when she met him in the corridor. Naruto bowed before saying, "Hello Ms. Hasegawa." "You seem troubled," said Chisato. "It's nothing I can't deal with," said Naruto. Chisato remained silent and said, "Follow me." Naruto simply did as he was told to. He knew he couldn't ignore Chisato Hasegawa. He didn't even know why he was so calm around her. It was just like the last time. The moment he saw her, he felt calmer and at ease. He followed her through the corridors toward the infirmary. When both were inside the infirmary, he closed the sliding door and looked at Chisato. She was sitting at her desk like last time, but this time. "Why don't you take a seat?" asked Chisato. Naruto did precisely that and sat down on a chair beside her. "You have obtained something," said Chisato, looking down at his right palm. Naruto looked where she was looking and raised his hand, showing his open palm to her. Naruto said, "Yes. It's one of the reasons why I changed." Naruto lowered his hand and let it rest on his leg. "It seems like this isn't the reason you seem troubled," said Chisato. "You are content and in balance with your inner energy." Naruto remained silent and looked at his legs. Why was he so carefree around this woman? He couldn't understand it. He should normally have been extremely careful around her, but he wasn't. He even showed her the newly acquired power he got from Ashura. Naruto got wide eyes when he felt a gentle touch on his cheek. He looked up and saw that Chisato Hasegawa had placed her soft hand on his whiskered cheek. He flushed at this entire situation. "I only want to help you, Uzumaki," said Chisato. Naruto remained silent and listened to Chisato. It's not good to hold emotions inside. It will accumulate and someday you will burst and drown in your own emotions. You don't need to talk to me about it, but I hope you can entrust yourself to someone. You don't need many friends or people you trust, only one or two are enough for you to be comfortable enough to be yourself." She pulled her hand away gently and said, "I will always have an open ear for you. You are strong, I am sure you will succeed," said Chisato. Naruto's lips began to form into a smile. He didn't know why, but something inside him felt like it was lifted off his shoulders. How this woman managed to have such an effect on him was unknown, but he didn't care right now. It felt good and he could clear his mind. "Thank you Ms. Hasegawa. You are right. I am indeed troubled by something, but this isn't something I can't deal with. If I feel like I need help, I will come back and ask for help," said Naruto. "Do you promise?" asked Chisato. Naruto had a hunch that Chisato Hasegawa knew what a promise meant for Naruto Uzumaki. He didn't know how she knew so much about him. It seemed like she knew everything about him. No matter what it was. He was involved in the fight between Basara and Takagawa, his new powers, his mental state. She seemed to know everything, and yet he wasn't concerned because of that. He didn't know why, but it was just like that. "I promise," said Naruto. Chisato smiled and said, "Then I will not take up your time any further. I am happy I could help." Naruto chuckled and said, "Thank you Ms. Hasegawa. I will leave then." Chisato watched Naruto leave the infirmary. She closed her eyes and looked toward two beds when she opened her eyes again, where the curtains were pulled around. She stood up and pulled the curtains slightly to the side, revealing an unconscious Basara and Yuki. Chisato closed the curtains behind her again and a green light appeared behind the curtains. Naruto still had a few minutes and walked through the corridors toward the stairs. He wanted to lay on the roof for the rest of the break to feel the sun on his face again. He lay on the roof a minute later, sunbathing a little. He closed both eyes until his ears twitched. He opened one eye and was surprised to see a black cat with golden eyes. He rose into a sitting position and looked at the black cat. The cat stood a few meters away from Naruto. Her ears stood up, showing that she was either cautious or her attention was on something. "Hey there," said Naruto. The cat didn't move, but her tail twitched when Naruto greeted the cat. "Didn't I say yesterday that you shouldn't follow me?" Naruto chuckled when he saw that the cat made a step back, bending her body slightly forward. "Don't worry, I won't hurt you," said Naruto. He lay back down and closed his eyes. "I was in a bad mood yesterday. Don't mind me. Just do your thing." Naruto could tell that the cat was slowly coming closer to him. When the cat was directly beside him, she seemed to hesitate, but after a few seconds, she rubbed her head against his whiskered cheek. "Is this your thanks for yesterday?" asked Naruto, opening his eyes to look the cat into her golden eyes. The cat meowed and jumped on his chest, curling up on it. Naruto took a hand from behind his head and began stroking the cat. The cat began to purr, and this was how Naruto remained for the rest of the break on the roof with his new companion. When the bell rang, the cat jumped from his chest. Naruto stood up and looked at the cat. "I guess I will see you around, little kitty," said Naruto before turning around and walking toward the door. The cat waited until Naruto went inside and closed the door behind him. The cat walked toward the edge of the roof before it simply jumped down. A black magic circle appeared around the black cat before the cat vanished. When Naruto entered the classroom, he could see Takagawa talking with a classmate. Mio wasn't here yet, so he simply walked toward his seat and sat down. When Mio came into the classroom a minute later, she walked to her seat but yet again made a turn for Naruto. Mio knew she was selfish, but it was probably her last day. She wanted to feel this warm feeling that radiated from Naruto just a little bit more before she would never come back. "Is something, Narus?" asked Naruto. "Would it be okay for you if I sit in Nanaka's seat?" "Only for today, of course," said Mio. "Help yourself," said Naruto with a smile. Mio smiled, and again, it was a genuine smile and not a fake one. Naruto looked outside while Mio took her bag and sat down on the seat before Naruto. She smiled, feeling the warmth that radiated from Naruto the entire time. She would be selfish today and bathe in this warmth as much as possible before she would most likely never come back. The rest of the day was without any more interesting situations. Naruto was alone on the roof during the break, and when he was in the classroom, Mio didn't talk further with him. She seemed content sitting before him, and this was enough for her. At the end of the school day, Naruto was putting everything in his bag and standing up. He took his bag and wanted to walk out of the classroom, but Mio said his name before he could do so. "Uzumaki?" asked Mio. "MHM?" Naruto stood beside his table with his bag held over his shoulder. He looked into Mio's pink eyes. Mio was a beautiful young woman shorter than Naruto, with long crimson hair reaching her waist and pink eyes. For someone her age, she had been noted for having a distinctly slender yet curvy figure with bouncy dot. She was dressed in her school's uniform, which resembled a white sailor uniform with a black collar and black cuffs with white horizontal stripes. An orange-colored tie hung from the edges of her collar, and she wore a short black skirt with a single white stripe. She also wore long black socks with a red ribbon around her upper thighs and a pair of maroon-colored shoes. "Could we walk together out of the building?" asked Mio. Naruto raised an eyebrow at this question. Mio flushed a little in embarrassment when she saw his obvious confusion. "I wanted to ask you something on the way," said Mio. "I don't have a problem with this," said Naruto with a smile, and they walked out of the classroom. Some boys looked after Naruto and Mio but weren't worried. They knew that Naruto had nothing to do with Mio. "So, what did you want to ask me?" asked Naruto. Mio hesitates until she remembers that this would be her only chance to speak with him before she confronts Takagawa. "I wanted to ask you why you talked with me like that. I thought you wouldn't even look at me after yesterday," said Mio. Naruto looked forth and said nothing for a few steps before he opened his mouth. "I think you misunderstood the situation," said Naruto. Mio got confused at this statement. "What do you mean?" asked Mio. "What I said to Yuki was exactly how I meant it. She broke a promise, and I despise people who break a promise. It shows me they can't be trusted," said Naruto. "If Nanaka ever wants my trust back, she will have to earn it. But you and TMJM didn't break a promise to me. Indeed, I won't want to be dragged into the problems of you, but I don't have anything personal against you too. Only Yuki was the person who broke the promise. As long as you don't try to drag me into your problems, I still see you and TMJM as my normal classmates," said Naruto. "Well, I guess it's not completely like before since you two know my abilities, and this makes me cautious to some extent. If I think one of you tries to lure me into something, I will respond accordingly. But when I think you two want to talk to me like usual, I don't have any problem with that." Mio couldn't say anything. She didn't know what it was, but hearing Naruto explain it made her happy. This meant that she could say goodbye to him with the knowledge that he didn't have anything against her. Also, the way he talked about his morals was kind of inspiring for her. He really was someone who could influence someone with just a few words. She felt it yesterday, especially when she heard what Naruto said to Yuki about how he, despite people who break a promise. It hit someone deep inside. It makes someone question his own beliefs. What Naruto said only made sense, and if everyone had this mentality, then the world would be a better place for sure. Naruto and Mio came out of the school building and walked a little over the school grounds before Naruto stopped. "I will see you tomorrow, Narus," said Naruto with a smile. "Goodbye, Naruto," said Mio with a smile. Naruto looked at her smile and remained silent. Naruto turned around and walked away, thinking, she faked her smile again. "You don't want to ask her what's wrong?" asked Narukami in his mind. Naruto said nothing while other students still surrounded him. When he was walking through Tokyo and no one was around him, he said, "No. Even if she didn't break a promise like Nanaka, I meant what I said. If I would ask her what was wrong, then I would go against my own words. I would drag myself into something I don't want to be a part of. Besides, when she is home, TMJM will take care of her like usual. He is strong and has a strong will to protect his precious people," said Naruto. "You know yourself that the last sentence you spoke was stupid, right?" said Narukami. Naruto closed his eyes and remained silent. There has to be a reason why Mio Nerus came to school alone. If Basara TMJM could take care of her, he would have been in school today. "It's clear that something happened," said Narukami. Naruto remained silent and crossed the street when the ample went green. "I see," said Narukami. "I won't bother you anymore," said Narukami and cut the mental link. A few hours later, Naruto was training in the park again at the same place he had been practicing the hand signs for the first time. He was holding his hand before him and trying to create the Rasengan, but he had made no progress so far. He lowered his hand and took his water bottle off the ground. He opened the bottle and drank something from it. He looked up at the sky and admired the orange rays of the sun. Naruto smiled when he took the bottle from his lips. It was a beautiful sight, like always. His ears twitched. His head turned to the side in time to see something flying at Naruto. Naruto reacted quickly and spread his arms, catching the person who flew toward him. He slid a little over the ground until he stopped. He managed to catch the person safely and now held her in his arms like a bride. He looked into the eyes of the person he just caught. "Are you serious?" thought Naruto. "Do you Uzumaki?" asked a startled Mio Nerus. Her pink eyes were wide. She was surprised, confused, happy, overwhelmed, and so much more. She already thought this was it when she was hit by the blast of the last attack of her enemy. Naruto wanted to answer but looked forward to where steps could be heard. Mio followed his gaze, completely calm even when she was in his arms right now. Usually, she would be completely embarrassed, but right now, it was a different situation. She narrowed her eyes when the person she fought came into view. "Well, look at that. I didn't think someone would be in the near environment," said a male voice. Out of the shadows of the trees appeared a man with long black hair, red eyes, and pointy ears. He wore a black robe and held two light swords in his hands. "I thought I killed Mio Nerus with my last attack. It seemed like you not only caught her, but also healed all her injuries in the process," said the man. Mio just realized she didn't feel any pain. She looked at herself, and just like the man had said, she had no injuries whatsoever. "Could I know your name?" asked the man. "My name is Kakabiel." Naruto frowned when he saw how 10 black feathered wings came out of the back of Kakabiel. The two light swords in his hands vanished in the process. "I would like to get to know you," said Kakabiel. Mio looked at Kakabiel and could be called lucky she wasn't dead. She was on her way to confront Takagawa, but on her way to the spot, she knew he would wait. This fallen angel with 10 wings appeared out of nowhere and introduced himself as he had just done to Naruto. She had no chance against him, but she could somehow manage to dodge some light-based attacks from him. It was clear he only played with her, but thanks to that, she was able to meet Naruto or, more precisely, be saved by him. Even when it wasn't planned, she was happy that he was here. The moment she got caught, she was surrounded by this warmth again, and it made her feel safe. Naruto let Mio down and stepped before her. It was only a natural reaction, but she took cover behind Naruto at least a little. Half of her body was behind Naruto. Naruto was surrounded by lightning before the lightning flew toward his left hand, transforming into Narukami. "Oh? Now, this is interesting," said Kakabiel. "I never thought I would see the sword of the thunder god again in my life. It was supposed to be lost, but I guess you got your hands on it," said Kakabiel. His voice seemed happy and full of excitement. "Let's finish this quickly." "I still have things to do," said Naruto while he held Narukami's sheath with his left hand and his right hand, touching Narukami's handle. He bent slightly forward, ready for battle. Lightning sparkled around Naruto when Kakabiel held one arm up and summoned a light spear above him. "Let's see how you will deal with this," said Kakabiel, thrusting his hand forward. The spear above his head flew toward Naruto and Mio, ready to kill both. "How did it come to this?" thought Naruto, getting ready to deal with Kakabiel's attack. The light spear with the power to annihilate entire buildings without much effort darted through the air toward Naruto and Mio, intending to kill both targets. Kakabiel looked at his two playmates and hoped Naruto could give him a good fight. He had the sword of the thunder god, after all. He should be able to withstand his attack. Naruto unsheathed Narukami and slashed the air, unleashing a crescent-shaped lightning bolt. His lightning attack and the light spear collided and triggered an explosion, shaking the ground slightly. Naruto sheathed Narukami again and dashed through the black smoke of the explosion. Kakabiel had seen through this move long ago. Multiple smaller light spears were hovering around him in the air, ready to launch at Naruto. Naruto slid over the ground a little because he stopped. Kakabiel snipped with his finger and a light spear shot forth, ready to pierce Naruto. What came now was truly surprising. Naruto began to slide along the ground like he was sliding over ice. Naruto unleashed multiple lightning bolts to counter the light spears. Naruto had to concentrate on his chakra on his feet because he was using chakra control to slide over the ground. Someone could describe it as hovering over the ground and using this hovering to slide over the ground, as if he would ice skate. This was accomplished by focusing a big layer of chakra under his feet to gain this hovering effect. Kakabiel created a larger light spear this time and threw him with his arm. Naruto stopped and went into a ready position. He filled Narukami's sheath with lightning energy, ready to obliterate the light spear. Just before the light spear could hit Naruto, he unsheathed Narukami and unleashed a devastating slash attack. The light spear was utterly destroyed and, in the same instant, a crescent moon-shaped lightning flew toward Kakabiel. Kakabiel created a light sword and slashed at the lightning attack, splitting it in half. Kakabiel grinned, being satisfied so far. "You are not bad to be able to counter this many light spears without much trouble," said Kakabiel. Naruto didn't answer and dashed forth again, shooting multiple lightning bolts toward Kakabiel. Kakabiel spread his 10 black feathered wings and began to fly around the lightning bolts with ease. Naruto jumped up, intending to end this fight. Kakabiel smirked at this obvious move and held a hand before him. The golden magic circle appeared before Kakabiel. Holy magic. Judgment ray. A golden magic ray shot out of the magic circle and traveled at high speed toward Naruto. Against humans, holy magic was pretty neutral, but if this attack hit a devil, vampire, or imkai, those beings of darkness would take extreme damage. Holy magic was a very effective weapon against all beings of darkness, doing extra damage. Just before Naruto got hit, he seemed to dodge midair to the side and push himself off something invisible further toward Kakabiel. Kakabiel raised both eyebrows when he saw Naruto's maneuver. The golden magic ray flew further toward the ground and caused an explosion of golden magic energy. The ground shook slightly and chunks of earth flew away. Mio had to create a defensive magic circle before her. Otherwise, she would have been swept away from the shockwave that was triggered by the explosion. A few chunks of earth also crashed against her defensive magic circle. She closed her eyes slightly to see better. While she held her defensive magic circle up, she looked up toward her classmate and the fallen angel with 10 wings. The defensive magic circle could be used by all beings who had access to a magic system. The more magic power someone could use, the more the defensive magic circle could withstand. It was a universal tool for every magic user. Naruto seemed to slow down while he flew toward Kakabiel, who was high in the air. Kakabiel wanted to say something but saw it now. Naruto tensed his legs and pushed himself midair further toward Kakabiel. He is using the air like steps, thought Kakabiel. Another golden magic circle appeared over Kakabiel this time, but unlike before, there didn't come a magic ray out. Multiple light spears shot out of it and rained down on Naruto. Naruto narrowed his eyes and shot multiple lightning bolts toward all the light spears. But this didn't do much because the continued rain of light spears became too much for his lightning bolts. The sheer number of light spears was too much for his lightning bolts to handle. Naruto looked down and frowned, realizing he would have to stop this attack. Otherwise, Mio on the ground would be caught up in the attack if the light spears would hit the ground. He pushed himself one last time midair further up toward the rain of light spears. He pumped a large amount of lightning energy into the sheath of Narukami. Just when all the light spears were about to hit him, he unsheathed Narukami and said the name of his attack. Rikiri. Lightning cutter. Naruto unleashed a slash, which moved at an immense speed, surpassing the speed of sound and releasing both blinding light and a tremendous amount of heat in the process. The sound of a thunderclap echoed through the sky. Kakabiel and Mio had to shield their eyes because of the blinding light that was created. All light spears were wholly obliterated, and Kakabiel was even pushed back because of the blast wave that was triggered by the explosion when Naruto's slash destroyed every light spear. When he opened his eyes, he could see how Naruto was almost before him. Kakabiel created 2 light swords in his hands and shot toward Naruto. Naruto didn't have enough time to sheath Narukami again, and because of that, he couldn't use Rikiri to end this battle. Rikiri was a Batenjutsu, meaning Narukami had to be sheathed to use the slash attack. Besides the weakness that it had to be used at close range, the other weakness would be that Narukami had to be returned to the sheath every time Naruto wanted to use it. Naruto blocked the first sword with Narukami, and when the second light sword from Kakabiel swung from the other side, Naruto surprised Kakabiel by using the sheath to block the light sword. Not bad, this quick draw technique you just used has a devastating power. I shouldn't allow you to use this attack in close range, right? Asked Kakabiel with a smirk. Naruto didn't say anything and kicked Kakabiel away before sheathing Narukami, shooting a lightning bolt after Kakabiel. Kakabiel surrounded himself with his wings, and the lightning bolt crashed into his form, triggering a lightning explosion. Naruto let himself fall to the ground, landing in a crouch before rising into a standing position. He looked up at Kakabiel and thought, he is so far the strongest opponent I faced. My lightning strike seemed to do little damage against him. The black smoke around Kakabiel vanished and revealed an unscathed Kakabiel. His wings were still around him when he was revealed until he spread them again, laughing. "This is it," said Kakabiel. He looked down and grinned like a madman. "Dance longer with me, human. Show me all your tricks and strength before I kill you." He shot down at immense speed, surprising Naruto a little. But this speed was nothing he couldn't handle. Naruto took a defensive stance and waited for Kakabiel to get close enough. He couldn't use Rikiri since Kakabiel wasn't dumb. Kakabiel created light spears in his hand and threw them toward Naruto. Naruto had to unsheath Narukami and destroy the light spears with multiple slashes. Before Naruto could return Narukami to its sheath, Kakabiel was already before him. Kakabiel created a light sword in his hand, slashing at Naruto. Naruto and Kakabiel began a wild weapon fight. Multiple shock waves ravaged the park and the ground was destroyed slowly but surely under extreme pressure. Both opponents were attacking, blocking, and attacking. Naruto blocked a slash from the left and had to sidestep the followed-up thrust attack. Leo could only look in awe at how Naruto could keep up with Kakabiel, one of the strongest fallen angels alive. A fallen angel with 10 wings was on a level she couldn't even dream of fighting at her current strength. Her current strength was just enough to fight on equal terms with a 4-winged fallen angel. She also didn't see how Naruto and Kakabiel were moving. Their movement was too fast. Everything she saw was multiple sparks of the moment the swords clashed and a black and yellow blur speeding over the ground. An explosion rocked through the park when Naruto and Kakabiel clashed swords again. A black smokescreen erupted and cloaked both fighters. A yellow and golden blur flew out of the top, clashing multiple times in midair. When they were about 30 meters in the sky, they made some space to clash again and trigger a massive explosion. Kakabiel and Naruto flew out of the explosion from opposite sides. Naruto twisted and straightened his body, sheathing Narukami. After 4 seconds, he landed safely on the ground and looked toward Kakabiel, who also landed on the ground 20 meters from him. "Good, very good," said Kakabiel in an ecstasy voice. "This is it. This is a real battle. How long have I waited for a good opponent to show up? Let's fight more, let's enjoy ourselves, human." Kakabiel shot toward Naruto with a smile only a maniac could express. Naruto didn't say anything and dashed toward Kakabiel. Just like before, he had to unsheath Narukami before he could get in range with Rikiri because Kakabiel threw some light spears toward him. Leo spread her wings to put some distance between her and the two fighting titans. It was unbelievable what she saw. She knew that Basara had no chance at all against Kakabiel and she saw her classmate keeping up with Kakabiel. He has not had a single injury to this point. She was now hovering in the air and only saw how shockwaves ripped through the landscape, destroying chunks of earth, trees, benches, or lampposts. Everywhere the two opponents went through got utterly destroyed. Naruto slashed at Kakabiel and had to sidestep the counter slash from his first light sword. Kakabiel summoned a second light sword at the same moment and slashed at Naruto. Naruto rolled out of the way and jumped toward Kakabiel afterward. Kakabiel grinned and multiple small light spears appeared around him before he shot them toward Naruto, who was only 3 meters away. Naruto's stoic facial expression didn't change when he saw in slow motion how the light spears were about to pierce his body. A few sparks of lightning appeared around him before he vanished at the last second. Kakabiel's eyes widened when he felt how the wind moved unnaturally behind him. He looked over his shoulder to see Naruto sheathing Narukami. Kakabiel dashed away a few meters to escape the range of Naruto's Rikiri. Naruto didn't dash after Kakabiel. Instead, he went into a low position and closed his eyes. Kakabiel stood a good 10 meters away when he saw how something like white steam came out of Naruto's mouth. Naruto tapped into his reverse side ability, preparing his attack. "What?" thought Kakabiel. An unnatural pressure appeared all around Naruto and Kakabiel. The ground beside Naruto began to get cracks from the pressure that Naruto radiated. A few sparks of electricity could be seen around Naruto. "Yes. That's it. Show it to me," said Kakabiel, getting a golden aura around him. His power shot through the roof when he tapped into his secret technique, the Holy Multiplier. The Holy Multiplier was to make it simply a boost in every aspect of one's fighting power. He got faster and stronger, his light weapons were more durable, and so forth. Naruto unsheathed Narukami slightly, concentrating. He regulated his breathing, sending all his strength to his legs. His legs began to tremble from the tension they were under. Naruto channeled chakra into his legs, further boosting his leg strength. To put even more power into his legs, he used lightning manipulation to increase his reflex time and general speed. Anjutsu, Ugai, quick draw style, secret technique lightning exploded out of Naruto's body, enveloping him completely. The roar of a monster could be heard when the lightning began to shape into a Japanese dragon head around Naruto. Kabiel smirked, feeling how his blood began to boil and his neck hair stood up. How long had it been since he felt so threatened in his life? How long had it been since he was in such an extreme situation? It's been too long. He lived for this moment. Those moments made him feel truly alive. "Come at me," said Kabiel, summoning a shield out of light energy in his right hand. His red eyes were now shining golden while he was in his holy multiplier state. He laughed loudly, fixing his gaze on the first decent enemy he had in a long time. Naruto's eyes shot open, having prepared everything for his attack. Hinoikazuchi no Kami. Flaming Thunder God, what now came was too fast for Mio. Naruto shot forward, leaving behind destroyed earth and a massive cloud of dust. Everything that came in contact with him was obliterated to nothingness. When he was right before Kabiel, he unsheathed Narukami and unleashed a frontal slash. A massive lightning explosion destroyed everything around the two opponents. Trees were uprooted, massive chunks of earth flew away, the ground was ripped apart, and the clouds in the sky began to move away from the extreme shock wave that was triggered by Naruto's attack. Mio had to put everything she had into her defensive magic circle so as not to be blown away by the shock wave. She looked at the massive black smokescreen that appeared after the lightning explosion happened. What an incredible attack, thought Mio. She held her defensive magic circle up, thinking this would not be over. Kabiel flew out of the massive black smokescreen and held his left shoulder with his right hand. Where formerly a left arm was is now nothing. Kabiel had lost his entire left arm up to his shoulder. He gasped and was breathing heavily, suppressing his desire to scream out of pain. He never thought the attack his human used could cause such massive destruction and damage. But despite everything that happened, his crazy smile never left his face. He felt it as if he was on a battleground, just like in the war between the three factions. He began to laugh, laughing to the heavens, looking up toward the sky. The wound on his shoulder had already closed since he had used some magic to close it. His right hand fell beside his right side. His head snapped down, looking toward the black smokescreen. He wanted more. He didn't even wait for Naruto to appear. He bent down and pushed himself off the tree he stood on, destroying the tree completely. A few lightning bolts shot out of the black smokescreen, hitting Kabiel. Kabiel twitched but never slowed down. His laughter only increased because of the pain he felt. The black smokescreen vanished out of nowhere and Naruto was revealed. Naruto stood there, ready for Kabiel to come near him. Naruto waited patiently, having been prepared already. His eyes were closed, but he knew exactly where Kabiel was. 12 meters 11 meters Naruto waited until Kabiel was in range. Rikiri. Everything Kabiel could see was how Naruto unsheathed Narukami, unleashing his Rikiri. The sound of a thunderclap echoed through the park and a massive amount of heat and blinding light was unleashed at the same time. When everything was over and it became silent, Naruto stood there with a sheathed Narukami. He looked at the ground where Kabiel's corpse was lying. Naruto turned around and walked away with a stoic expression on his face. Narukami vanished at the same time. "Uzumaki," said Mio. She landed before him and looked worried. "Are you okay?" "Yes. I just want to go home." "I would recommend you also go home, Naruto. TMJM will be worried," said Naruto, walking past her. Mio wanted to say something, but Naruto already vanished after a few steps. She looked at the spot where her classmate just vanished and remained silent before spreading her wings. She began to fly toward the TMJM household and thought about everything she saw and experienced that day. She couldn't get it out of her head. The warm feeling she had when she was around Naruto. The feeling she wanted to feel more when she was around him. The feeling as if the sun was right beside you. She shook her head and tried to think about something else. "I said no," said Naruto. He just entered his apartment after he left the park. Narukami tried to talk to him about something, but Naruto wouldn't listen since he already told Narukami what he thought about all this. "I won't join TMJM, Naruto, and the others who are involved in their struggle. Today was an exception because Naruto literally flew into my arms and I had no other choice," said Naruto. "I won't interfere from now on. I will stay on the sidelines. Yes, in Konoha, no one thought about my well-being. I had to become stronger to survive as long as possible. No one helped me, and why should I be the one who helps others?" thought Naruto. He remembered all the times he asked for help but never got anything. His blood began to flow faster, his heartbeat increased slightly, and his emotions went into overdrive. Naruto took some deep breaths to get a hold of himself. His buried emotions almost came back to the surface. Naruto could calm down and suppress the emotions that were about to break free. Naruto sat on his couch and looked at his hand. "I thought I would have overcome this, but it seems like my past still haunts me," thought Naruto. Naruto furrowed with his eyebrows, remembering some nasty memories of his time in Konoha. He stood up and walked into his bedroom, undressing himself. He hoped that with some sleep, he would forget. When he lay down, he looked at the ceiling of his apartment before his gaze wandered to his window. He could see the dark night sky with its many stars sparkling in the endless horizon. He turned away and closed his eyes. 2 days already, thought Mio as she sat in the classroom. Basara and Yuki were also back in the classroom, but one classmate didn't come to school after the incident in the park. Naruto Uzumaki didn't come to school. She had hoped to speak with him about everything that happened on the day she did more with him than on any other day, the day she planned never to return, and the day she only wanted to be selfish one more time. Everything turned out different than she thought. Naruto Uzumaki was someone she didn't understand in the slightest before she spoke with him further. Everything she predicted would happen that day turned out to be false. First, he surprised her when he greeted her with a smile like everyone else. Then, there was the warm feeling that radiated from Naruto Uzumaki, a warm feeling indescribable for words. It triggered so many different emotions in her that it was hard to stay focused the first time she was near him. The longer she felt this warm sensation around Naruto, the longer she wanted to stay at his side. Then there was his explanation of why he talked normally to her like usual. The way he spoke of his morals and why he still saw Mio as his classmate was inspiring, but she didn't know what it was at the moment. She felt a sensation in the depths of her soul that told her this man Naruto Uzumaki went through a lot like herself. She wasn't sure why she felt it. The way his eyes darkened when he spoke about promises and how Yuki broke them and had to earn his trust again. The way his eyes darkened during this explanation was frightening but also worrying. She saw those eyes before hers. When she talked about her past, she remembered all the pain she had to go through. Even when she always tried to face her dark past, she couldn't contain the anger and hatred she felt during these moments. Those were the moments she saw her darker side, the one who wanted nothing but revenge. She didn't tell Basara or Yuki anything about the incident in the park from the time she was about to handle herself to Takagawa because she wanted no one else to get injured because of her. But everything happened differently that day. She met Kakabiel, a leader of the fallen angels with 10 wings. Her being still alive was more luck than anything else. He only played with her and chased her around as a cat does with a mouse. Just when she thought she would die with many injuries already, she landed right in the arms of the man who confused her more than once that day. The moment she crashed into his body, all her injuries got healed in an instant. She only realized this when Kakabiel mentioned this casually on the sidelines while he spoke with Naruto. Without any form of hesitation, her classmate protected her. He stood himself before her without saying a single word to her. He charged head-on toward the 10-winged fallen angels and fought with him on equal terms until he defeated him. The speed, the strength, the focus, just everything during this fight was unbelievable for Mio. She could only defend herself against the shock waves, which almost blew her away multiple times. Even when she was far away from the fight, she could feel the resolve, the heat, the adrenaline, and other emotions both fighters had. And in the end, he looked like he only had minor scratches. It was just incredible. He sent her away, telling her that Basara would be worried. She was worried about him at that moment, not about someone else. Even though she had always worried about Basara until this point, she didn't know what was happening to her. All her attention was on Basara and how to repay his kindness in taking her and Maria in, protecting both. She really thought about them as a family. She was even sure she felt something for Basara until everything they went through. They even kissed already, but what was it? Why didn't she think of Basara anymore when she woke up? Why did she always see those darkened blue eyes? Those blue eyes that represented the endless sky which became dull and full of anger at this moment, she saw his darkened eyes. His golden blonde hair looked like it was chosen by the sun itself. She wanted to know, but she couldn't figure it out. She became so confused that she often didn't even react to someone speaking to her. Even now, her gaze was toward the blackboard, her mind was on her missing classmate. Why couldn't she forget him and focus on Basara again? Naruto gasped and looked at the white smokescreen before him. Come on. Please. Thought Naruto. He was in his apartment, standing in his living room. He had moved the furniture to the side of the room, so he had an open space for the thing he tried since yesterday. When the white smoke began to vanish, Naruto could see the shadow of a figure standing there. Naruto swallowed once and prayed to God he finally managed to master the technique. He blinked when he saw his creation. Blue eyes stared into the blue eyes of someone who looked exactly like him. Naruto blinked some more and began to smile before grinning wildly, almost like a fox. Yada. He jumped up and cheered that he finally managed to do it. 30 hours without any sleep and constant failures and tries made themselves worth it. Before Naruto stood his first ever created Kage Bunshin, Shadow Clone. Naruto had finally managed to learn one of the 2 jutsu, the other version of himself used in the memories he saw. Yo, boss. Said the clone with a cheeky grin. Hello, clone. Said Naruto with a grin that mirrored that of his clone. Both looked at each other for a while before nodding at the same time. We are badass. Said the original and clone simultaneously. Both looked at each other before bursting out laughing. Naruto couldn't believe he really managed to pull that off. Just from a few memories of seeing someone perform the jutsu, he managed to find the right hand signs and the right amount of chakra to use for the clone technique. "Okay, let's try to dissolve yourself," said Naruto. The clone saluted and exploded into smoke. Naruto had wide eyes when he felt the chakras from outside enter his chakra network. He also had a short memory of how he looked at himself. "Wait, no way. Does this mean?" thought Naruto. He made 4 hand signs before another clone appeared in a poof of smoke. "Please circle around me once and dissolve yourself," said Naruto. "Sure thing, boss," said the clone, walking around Naruto once before dissolving itself. Naruto could feel it again, the same chakra crashed into his chakra network and he got a short memory of how someone circled Naruto. "It's the truth. The memories from my clone will get transferred back to me when they dissolve," thought Naruto. Naruto walked toward his couch and sat down, thinking about something. "Wait a second, if their memory gets transferred back to me, shouldn't that mean I could also train with them?" thought Naruto. He never understood why his other version used clones while he was training for something, but after Naruto's discovery, it made perfect sense. 2 people are more than 1, and 3 are more than 2, and so forth. Thinking about doing this with 1000 clones was ridiculous. If Naruto had trained with 1000 clones just for 1 minute, he already would have trained effectively for 1000 minutes, 16 hours. 1 minute would equal 16 hours of effective training, just ridiculous. He looked up at his ceiling and saw that his vision had darkened for a second. He frowned, realizing he had overdone it this time. He stood up and suddenly felt exhausted. He used more chakra than ever in his life from trying to create a functional cage bunshin for 30 hours straight. He walked through his apartment and stumbled into his bedroom, falling on his bed. His eyes closed and he smiled. He felt like he had accomplished something worth the entire work. The last 30 hours were worth the struggle, the frustration, and so forth. When Naruto opened his eyes, he stood in Konoha. "I guess I am dreaming again," thought Naruto. He walked through the streets and could see all the happy people. He could almost grasp the peaceful atmosphere. He looked around with a blank expression. This reminded him again of his past, something he wished he could forget. Naruto had wide eyes when he felt something. A piercing gaze, someone was watching him. He looked around, trying to find the person who made him feel so uneasy. His body was feeling fear. He bit his tongue in annoyance and calmed his body down. He heard a voice. "So here was where you are hiding." Naruto looked up toward the massive rock formation behind Konoha. He looked up and couldn't see it at first, but after he had let his gaze travel a little, he saw someone. There, on top of the rock formation, stood a single figure with a black hooded cloak that concealed everything. Even when the cloak moved rapidly in the wind, the form of the figure wasn't shown. Naruto narrowed his eyes, feeling an unsettling rage rising inside him. Even when this person stood up there and Naruto stood in the middle of the village, the person's voice was as if the person would stand directly before Naruto. Naruto's eyes flashed crimson when he felt a bottomless rage out of a sudden. "What is going on?" Naruto thought. He gritted his teeth and didn't let that hatred and rage consume him. His eyes were still crimson, but he could hold it together. "I am glad." The voice of the person echoed through the streets of Konoha. "You are one step closer to your original self. Even the power inside you remembers me. Get stronger, master everything you can, and when the time comes I will come for you. If you don't want to lose everything again, become stronger." Naruto had wide eyes when the person was before him out of a sudden. "Naruto, I will have you one day," said the person. Naruto could now see something under her cloak. Even when the hood concealed her hair and most of her face, he could still see the lips. Those definitely were the lips of a woman. No man had those soft-looking lips. But until then, goodbye. The person vanished into a cloud of ash and Naruto had to cough when he breathed something in. When the ash cloud was gone, he couldn't see the woman anymore. He didn't understand the last part of the sentence the woman said. What the fuck was that? Naruto opened his eyes and looked blank. He remembered his weird dream about Konoha, in which he met a woman entirely concealed by a black hooded cloak. He knew he had never met this woman before, not in this life or Konoha. The only female humans he ever had contact with in Konoha were his classmates, but they didn't even look at him while he was at the academy. What did the woman mean that she will have me one day? I don't get it, and besides, am I an object in her eyes? Thought Naruto, annoyed. It was definitely not a woman from the new world where he now lived. After all, the woman said something about Naruto hiding, even when he wasn't. It was true that he tried to remain undetected in this new world, but the way the woman said it was like Naruto tried to hide from this one woman, but he didn't even know her. Then, there was this surge of power he felt inside him all of a sudden. A power full of hatred, a hatred so endless like a bottomless ocean. It took all his willpower in his dream not to get consumed by this bottomless hatred. Naruto thought he felt this bottomless hatred before, but he couldn't remember from where. He shrugged and stood up, stretching once before walking out of his bedroom. He turned left to walk toward his bathroom. When he stepped into the bathroom, he looked at himself in the mirror. He got wide eyes when he saw something that wasn't supposed to be there. He looked down to his stomach. Impossible, thought Naruto. He couldn't believe it. No fucking way. This had to be a freaking joke. Why? Naruto nearly freaked out when he saw the thing that brought him many nightmares in his past life. On his stomach was a black seal visible with a spiral in the middle, occupied by a few spikes around it. This was the seal that held the Kyuubi, 9 tails, at bay when Naruto was still in Konoha. This was the reason why everyone hated him. The seal and the fucking beast that was sealed inside his stomach. Why is this there? I lost it when the Kyuubi got sucked out of my body. Why is this cursed seal on my stomach again? Thought Naruto. He couldn't believe it. The thing with Ashura was one thing, but he could deal with a new power that once had the ancestor of all shinobi. Naruto was okay with it since this power was his own, so to speak, and it didn't bring him any disadvantages, but if his fear were really true, then he would have either the Kyuubi inside him again or something different. He took some deep breaths and calmed down. He looked at the seal for a while and touched it with his left hand. He didn't feel any reaction. He looked at his right palm, where the sun-shaped symbol was. He laid his open palm on the seal and waited. Nothing happened, and Naruto was about to sigh when he got wide eyes. NRGH. His body felt like he was burning from the inside out. He took his palm away from the seal and concentrated on his breathing. After 1 minute, his body calmed down, and he looked into the mirror. His whisker marks looked thicker than before and a little more feral looking. He raised his hand and touched them. They felt like before, but his once thin lines were now a little thicker and looked more real than before, like the whiskers of a real fox. Naruto lowered his hand and looked at the seal on his stomach again. He furrowed his eyebrows. He couldn't understand what was going on. Why was all this shit happening to him? He thought he would have been entirely freed from his old life. First, he had dreams of Ashura and his older brother, then, he got the Yang seal from Ashura in the shape of a sun on his right palm. Now, he dreamed about Konoha again. What was when he woke up? The fucking seal of his past life appeared again. The seal that brought him every negative situation he ever faced in Konoha basically his entire life. Just why? Naruto sighed and showered to cool his head. He slowly got a headache and thinking about it was a waste of time right now. He couldn't understand it anyway without an explanation from someone who knew what was going on. Naruto sighed when the cold water ran over his body. His body shivered a little, but Naruto was used to cold water since he never had warm water in Konoha. He didn't have a shower in his little wooden hut on the outskirts of Konoha. He had to wash himself in a cold river that was near his home. He got so used to it that it was doing nothing to him. Naruto opened both eyes while he looked down. He didn't think about something specific, enjoying the cold water. He simply had a feeling that he didn't like. Like everything he has achieved so far, living in peace was for nothing. He got more and more confused the more he dreamed about and the more changes he undertook. First Ashura and now the Kyuubi, what would be next? I count on you guys, said Naruto. He was in an abandoned building a little outside of Tokyo. He wanted to use his newly acquired Kage Bunshin, shadow clones, as soon as possible. It was an old factory where metal was formerly used. The entire factory was gigantic. There was enough place for Naruto to create as many clones as he wanted. Before him, there were a few hundred clones, ready to train for Naruto while he walked to school. He was away from school for 3 days, and he knew he couldn't avoid meeting TMJM, Naruto, and Nanaka again. Even when he wanted to avoid them, he couldn't run away from those 3. The longer he didn't meet them, the more attention they would pay to him, since they would ask where he was all this time. He didn't know if Mio had said anything about what had happened in the park. He simply hoped she didn't. It would be not very pleasant. All the questions about why he was so strong, etc., would be annoying. He simply wanted to have a normal school day today, after everything he had experienced in the last few days. While Naruto walked through the streets, he looked toward the sky. He smiled when he felt the warm sensation of the sun on his face. He didn't know why, but the sun's rays felt slightly different today, but still pleasant. He closed his eyes, enjoying the warm sensation. While he walked through the streets, he considered how he should deal with the situation at school. If nothing happened, he would be happy, but he was sure that something would happen. He was sure that Takagawa also knew about his sacred gear and would sooner or later make a move. He would also have to deal with that. But first of all, he had to visit a certain school nurse since he was too confused about everything going on. He promised her if he needed help or advice, he would come to her. Since he didn't know what he should do about this entire shit, he had to visit her. Even when he didn't show it, he looked forward to it. Meeting Chisato Hasegawa always had a calming effect on him, and the longer he was with her, the better he felt. When Naruto entered the school grounds, a few boys were looking at him. Naruto raised an eyebrow when he saw the looks. What's with them? It's because a few days ago Naruto paid so much attention to me. Thought Naruto, confused. He shrugged and kept walking, ignoring the stares. Naruto held his school bag over his shoulder when he walked into class. When he opened the sliding door of the class, the entire classroom looked at him, at least the students who were already there. A few were still missing. Under them were Basara, Yuki, Mio, and Takagawa. Naruto was glad he was here before those 4 people. He sat down on his seat and looked outside. He smiled when he saw some birds flying over the school, circling each other. It was a beautiful show to see from Naruto's perspective at the window. He could see some students in the schoolyard laughing together, smiling, and talking. Naruto's smile dropped slightly when he got a flashback from his past life. He saw himself in the middle of the street, surrounded by many adults. All those adults laughed at Naruto and scolded him. He shook his head, trying to banish those thoughts out of his head. He felt how something inside him reacted to his negative emotions. Naruto bit his tongue, annoyed. He took a deep breath and calmed down. He looked toward the sky and admired the clouds. He could hear a few people walking into the classroom. He didn't look, but he could say it was Basara, Mio, and Yuki. Just from the sounds of the steps, he could tell those 3 were walking to their usual seats. From the corner of his eyes, he saw Yuki standing beside her table. Naruto didn't look at her, and she looked at the ground, sitting down without greeting him like usual. He ignored the stares from his classmates and continued with his cloud watching. To Naruto's surprise, everyone seemed to keep a distance from him. At least the 4 people he tried to avoid. He wouldn't complain about the situation and hoped this could be a typical school day like every other before the entire shit started. He smiled while he looked toward Mr. Sakazaki and listened to his lesson. If everything turned out as he hoped, then he would meet with Ms. Hasegawa during the first break and talk with her about his problems, and the rest of his time in school today would be peaceful. But he would wait and see. When the first 2 lessons were over, Naruto stood up and walked past Yuki. When he turned the corner to walk toward the door of the classroom, he heard his name. "Hey Uzumaki." Naruto stopped and looked toward the last row. Takagawa was walking past Basara and Mio. "Want to eat together this break?" asked Takagawa with an innocent smile. Naruto smiled back innocently. "Sorry, I already have plans to meet with someone." "Another time, Takagawa," said Naruto. "Too bad, oh well," said Takagawa, shrugging. "See you after the break." "Yeah, see you after the break," said Naruto, walking out of the classroom. He left Takagawa behind and sighed. It was clear he would speak to me. I knew he knew about my sacred gear, thought Naruto. He opened his closed right hand and looked at the yang seal he got from Ashura. He didn't know why, but he guessed that the appearance of the seal on his stomach had to do with the yang seal on his right palm. Yang chakra made it possible to give non-living things a form and life. Since chakra itself was also life, if someone would call it that, he could think that because of the yang seal on his palm, something inside him appeared. If he now had the fucking fox inside him again or something else, he was sure something would wait for him if he ever came across his subconscious again. He didn't like the thought, but he would have to deal with it as always. He would never break. He didn't break in Konoha, and his will wouldn't break in this world. No matter what, he would have to deal with. Naruto stood now before the infirmary and knocked twice. He waited for a minute and nothing. Let's see if she is helping someone else right now, thought Naruto. If it is the case, then I will come in the second break back. He opened the sliding door slightly and raised both eyebrows. Well, that is unexpected, thought Naruto, surprised. Wasn't TMJM still in the classroom when I left? Naruto wasn't sure, but since Chisato Hasegawa was, let's say, busy with Basara, Naruto closed the sliding door again and walked away from the infirmary. Seeing Basara making out with the school nurse was something Naruto didn't expect. He knew that Chisato Hasegawa had some connection with Basara. The first time she really talked to Naruto, she asked him about Basara's condition after the fight he had with Takagawa. It was clear that Chisato and Basara had some kind of relationship. Naruto just didn't think the relationship would go this deep. To be honest, I shouldn't be surprised. Basara is the main protagonist of his own real harem story. This would be the most logical thing to happen. Every hot woman girl fell in love with the male main protagonist. It was only a question of time before those 2 would get together like this, thought Naruto. When Naruto turned the corner, he almost bumped into Mio and Yuki. "Oh, sorry, ladies. I was thinking and didn't watch where I was going," said Naruto with an apologetic smile. "And no. We should have watched where we were going," said Yuki in a nervous voice. "Yes, sorry, we were talking and didn't look," said Mio. "Don't worry about that. See you both in the classroom again," said Naruto with a smile, walking past the 2 idols. Mio turned around and asked, "Uzumaki, have you seen Basara?" Naruto stopped and said without thinking, "Yeah, in the infirmary." He stopped and got a little pale. Shit. He just realized he did something completely stupid. Uzumaki, is everything okay?" asked Mio. She could see that even when he stood with his back to them, he had gone pale. "Huh? Oh, yeah. Hahaha. I must go, someone is waiting for me, see you both," said Naruto before walking away with a fastened pace. Yuki and Mio were watching after Naruto, confused. "What was that?" asked Yuki. This wasn't like Naruto at all. This reaction was very suspicious. "I don't know, but let's go to the infirmary," said Mio. Yuki nodded but glanced after Naruto one more time before following Mio. Yuki was slightly behind Mio and couldn't see the face Mio was making. Her lips were trembling and her eyes were unfocused. Mio wanted to go after Naruto, but she stopped herself right on the spot. It would do her no good. The best thing was to keep her distance from him. He wanted to stay away from the problems of others, so she did the right thing even when she wanted to do more with him. She had so many questions she wanted to ask him. Why were his eyes so full of pain and darkness when she talked with him back then? She shook her head. "Stop it. He doesn't want to have anything to do with us, just let it go," Mio thought. Naruto walked up the stairs and sighed deeply. "I hope TMJM and Ms. Hasegawa are done with their makeout session before the two girls arrive there. This would be for the best," thought Naruto. He opened the door to the roof and walked outside. He lay down and clapped his hands behind his head, closing his eyes. He enjoyed the warm sensation on his face like usual for the rest of the break without anyone coming to the roof. So far today was a pretty good day when it came to school. The event with Basara and Chisato was surprising, but besides that, everything was almost like before the entire bullshit started. He smiled, thinking today could really be a good day. When I remember correctly, then tomorrow is the full moon. Maybe I will stay awake a little longer and look at the full moon tomorrow, thought Naruto. When the break was over, he walked back inside and went to his classroom. He sat down on his seat and watched the outside, waiting for Mr. Sakazaki and the other students to return to the classroom. He looked slightly at the sliding door when Basara walked inside with Mio and Yuki. Well shit. I fucked up, thought Naruto. It was clear that Mio and Yuki saw something she shouldn't have. Mio was red in the face and not from embarrassment. It was clear that she was mad at Basara when Naruto heard the way he tried to speak with her. She ignored him completely. Yuki had a stoic expression, but when someone looked at her right hand, someone would see that she wasn't in a good mood. Her right hand was formed into a fist and her formed fist trembled. Naruto looked outside, hoping the power of the main protagonist would help Basara fix the situation, even when Naruto triggered it. Normally, those two would have never looked in the infirmary for Basara. Because Naruto told them Basara was there, they went there and discovered the relationship between Basara and Chisato. At least, that was what Naruto was thinking. By some miracle, both could also be mad at him because of something else. When Yuki sat down before Naruto, she looked at him. Naruto was watching some birds fly over the school. Before he could see it, she turned around and looked forward because the teacher came in. Naruto also looked forward and concentrated on the next lesson. The tension in the classroom was a little high, but it was generally peaceful until the next break. When the next break started, Naruto walked outside and was on his way to the infirmary. He promised Ms. Hasegawa he would visit her if he needed advice or help. Even if he was happy that the school day went smoothly until now, he still had questions and doubts, and he needed help. When he was before the door of the infirmary for the second time that day, he could hear Chisato Hasegawa's voice. "Come in." Naruto opened the sliding door and walked inside, closing the sliding door. He bowed slightly. "Hello, Ms. Hasegawa. I am sorry for interrupting, but I wanted to talk to you," said Naruto. "Why don't you sit down, Uzumaki?" asked Chisato. Naruto did as he was told and sat down next to Chisato. "Before anything else, I wanted to apologize. I saw you in TMJM and told the girls, besides my knowledge, what you two were doing here, that TMJM was here. I hope I didn't cause any trouble for you, Ms. Hasegawa. Everything is alright. Nanaka and Nerus are a little mad because of something else, don't worry," said Chisato. Naruto sighed in relief. "I am glad. I don't want to interfere with TMJM's story," said Naruto, looking toward the beds in the infirmary. Chisato remained silent and looked at Naruto closely. Her eyes were fixated on his upper body or, more specifically, his stomach. "It seems like you got something you once lost," said Chisato. Naruto chuckled and looked at this higher being who looked like a goddess in human form. "Yes. I knew you would know what was going on with me without me even telling you about it," said Naruto. He raised his blazer and shirt, revealing the seal on his stomach. "This is a seal that once held a powerful beast at bay. I was its container and was used to make sure it wouldn't escape its prison and go on a rampage," said Naruto. Naruto looked down and frowned slightly. He looked up into Chisato's green eyes. "I don't know what I should do about this entire situation," said Naruto while he let loose of his blazer and shirt, hiding his seal again. "It feels like some kind of beast or power is inside me again, but I am not sure if it's alive or not. I don't even know if I want to know what is going on with me." Chisato remained silent and listened to Naruto's struggle. "This power or beast or whatever it is triggers a lot of negative memories and emotions. Every time I feel this power, my entire body gets filled with bottomless hatred and rage. I always kept myself together, but I feared I could waver once and get consumed completely. I don't want to lose myself and I don't want to remember my past life. I am not sure why I tell you this right now, but I feel like you always know what is going on with me. I think you also know that I am not originally from this world. I promised I would come back if I needed help, and now I need help. I just don't know what to do with this situation," said Naruto, supporting his head with his hands. Now he did it. He told someone from this world that he was from another world. He never thought he would do it, but somehow he felt like a weight got lifted off his body. He had wide eyes when he felt two arms closing around his head. He was momentarily looking at the ground. The next thing he knew was that his head was pressed into the chest of Chisato Hasegawa. "I am glad you came to me, Uzumaki," said Chisato while she stroked Naruto's spiky blonde hair. "You are right, I know of your life from the elemental nations and also from the way the villagers were treating you." Naruto chuckled a little, having already thought so. He was being penetrated by a warm feeling that flowed from Chisato's body into Naruto's. It was a comforting feeling he didn't remember. He felt many different kinds of warm feelings, but the feeling Naruto felt right now was something completely different. "Do you know what next step you need to take?" asked Chisato while she continued stroking Naruto's hair. Naruto remained silent and thought about this. "Yeah. I need to train to become stronger. If I want to hold on to my peaceful life in this school and world, I need to be strong enough to deal with everything that may come," said Naruto. "Something else?" asked Chisato. "I need to confront the power. Running away from it didn't make my situation better," said Naruto. Chisato smiled and said, "Good. 2 of 3 steps are clear before your mind." Naruto was confused and sat up straight, leaving her warm embrace. "There is a 3rd step?" asked Naruto. "You need to discover the truth about the woman you saw in your dream," said Chisato. Naruto's eyes widened. He completely forgot about this woman for a second. "You never met this woman, but she clearly knows who you are. But did you ever question yourself about whether you are actually the person she wants to find or just one version of the person she wants to find?" "Wait a second. Do you mean the woman I dreamed about actually wants to find another version of myself? Like a version of myself from another dimension?" asked Naruto. "Think about it and you will see the answer clearly before your mind," said Chisato. Naruto remained silent and closed his eyes. He was sure that he had never seen this woman before and already had something like that in mind, but it was too easy for him. Like this illusion must be false since this logical result in Naruto's mind was too simple for what he went through in the last days. He opened his eyes and said, "This is the only solution I can think about." "So what do you want to do now?" asked Chisato. "Enjoying the rest of the school day," said Naruto with a smile. His smile was a little brighter than before after he talked with Chisato. Even when he found the relationship between her and Basara strange, he was still thankful to her and happy he talked with her. He felt better again even when she didn't do much, even when her hug and warm embrace weren't something a school nurse would do, especially not after what the school nurse did with another student just 2 hours ago. He was grateful to the woman who always helped him so far and had the right advice. "Then enjoy the rest of the break. Come and visit me again in the next few days," said Chisato. "I would like to hear how you are doing." Naruto nodded and said, "I promise. I will visit you again in the next few days." The rest of the school day was very uneventful. Basara, Mio, Yuki and Takagawa seemed to hold their distance toward him. When the last bell rang, Naruto stood up and grabbed his school bag. He held him over his shoulder and wanted to walk out of class to begin his training. His Kage Bunshin, shadow clones, were still training to the second. However, he couldn't improve his physical body with his clones. This was something he had to do on his own. Learning ninjutsu and new chakra-related techniques was everything good, but he couldn't afford to neglect his physical training. His total concentration breathing already boosted his physical abilities to superhuman levels, but he still wanted to become even stronger. "Hey Uzumaki," said Mio. Naruto stopped when he was about to leave the classroom. He looked over his shoulder and could see Mio walking up to him. "Can we talk?" asked Mio. "Sure, I don't mind," said Naruto with a smile. He looked past Mio toward Basara and was surprised when he wasn't looking at Naruto and Mio. Did Ms. Hasegawa lie? Did Naruto and Nanaka see TMJM and Ms. Hasegawa during their makeout session? Thought Naruto. Well, it doesn't concern me. He didn't pay much attention to Basara and his harem during the rest of the day because he thought he would get it under control. But now that he looked closely, Mio and Yuki were still keeping their distance slightly. Well, Mio was holding her distance more than Yuki since Basara was already talking with Yuki again. She also seemed to smile slightly, but sometimes she still had a little harsh glare. "Let's go," said Naruto, walking out of the classroom with Mio. "Yes," said Mio with a smile. She followed Naruto and left the others behind. Both were walking together through the corridors of the school building when Naruto asked, "So, what did you want to talk about?" Mio averted his gaze for a few seconds before looking at him. Naruto looked confused at Mio and thought, since the day I saved her in the park, she is weird around me. What could it be? It can't be that she had feelings for me since she is in TMJM's harem and there was never a situation where a girl from a harem had feelings for a side character like me. TMJM is the main character, not me, and I am grateful for that. If I were the main character, I would get dragged from one problem into the next. I wanted to thank you properly since you saved my life the other day, said Mio with a nervous look. Don't mention it. You don't need to thank me, the important thing is that you are safe, said Naruto with a smile. Mio blushed a little when she saw his genuine smile. She looked away and calmed down her burning cheeks. She looked at him again and was relieved that he looked forth again with his usual smile. She didn't know what was wrong with her. She just couldn't get her classmate out of her mind. Since the day he saved her and she interacted more with him, he was just always in the back of her head. Even when you say so, I want to thank you properly, said Mio, determined. She wanted to thank him the right way and not just with a thank you. She also wanted to speak more with him and do something with him. Naruto looked at Mio and saw her eyes. They were full of determination. Naruto raised both eyebrows at her serious gaze. It showed him that she really wanted to do this and would most likely not change her mind. And what did you mean with that? You want to thank me properly? Asked Naruto. Well, I wanted to ask you if you have time today or tomorrow after school. I wanted to treat you to something to eat. It's the least I could do, said Mio. She tried to look normal, but because of the question itself, her face flushed. Someone could think she asked Naruto out on a date. Naruto also blushed slightly at this question and looked away. He furrowed with his eyebrows at his reaction. Why did he blush at such a simple question? He took a deep breath and got his emotions back under control. I am sorry, Naruto. I wanted to train after school the entire day, said Naruto, looking at Mio. A few things happened and I need to get stronger. I don't know how much time I have, but I know that I need to get stronger, no matter what. I will most likely train until it becomes dark and have no time for anything else, said Naruto. Mio's smile remained, but Naruto could see her hopeful eyes become dull for a second. He remained silent at her reaction. She closed her eyes and looked forth. He saw her smile again and thought she faked her smile again. I see, I am sorry. I should have thought of that. You didn't want to be dragged into our problems. If you would do something with me outside of school alone, it could be that a scenario like in the park happens again, said Mio. Mio opened her eyes and looked at Naruto. But seriously, thank you, Uzumaki. You saved my life. Without you, I wouldn't have returned that day, said Mio. Naruto and Mio left the school building while Mio thanked him. As I said, I am glad you are okay, said Naruto. He didn't smile. His motivation to smile was zero right now. This smile, he knew this smile. This cursed smile triggered old memories inside him. Mio Naruto did the exact same smile he did back in Konoha. The fake smile he always wore when he was around others. Naruto furrowed with his eyebrows. No. Don't. Thought Naruto. Naruto raised a hand but stopped himself. I will see you tomorrow, Uzumaki, said Mio with a smile. He frowned when he saw that smile. Mio turned around and began to walk away. Let her go, thought Naruto. He simply stood in the schoolyard looking at the back of Mio Naruto. He felt a sudden tightness in his chest. Naruto bit his tongue in annoyance. Come on. Just walk home. Thought Naruto. He remained stationary and didn't move a single muscle. Every step Mio Naruto took away from Naruto was in slow motion for Naruto. His senses were in overdrive, like back in Konoha. A feeling he hadn't had in a long time was piercing his entire body. His hands were twitching, but Naruto was holding them back. He did everything to fight the feeling he had right now. His body and mind were telling him to stop her. He remembered everything he had to go through in his past and knew what pain it came with. Why? Thought Naruto. Why did he have this feeling? Why did his body and mind want to comfort Mio Naruto? No one cared about him in Konoha. It didn't matter how many times he asked for help in his younger years, no one answered his calls. Not a single soul. Mio Naruto had people who helped her and were there for her. She couldn't possibly have the same pain as him. He had no one. She had Basara, Yuki, and others he didn't know yet. He was sure Chisato Hasegawa would also help her even when it was not directly like Basara. So why? Why the hell did his body begin to move? No. Thought Naruto. Naruto. Said Naruto. Mio stopped, surprised, and turned around. Naruto stopped 2 meters before her and said, tomorrow, said Naruto. I will wait for you after school at the entrance. If you don't appear, then I will go home. Naruto turned around and walked away. Mio's eyes were wide open. Her face showed her confusion and shock. After she realized what Naruto said, she began to blush. She couldn't believe what had just happened. Naruto Uzumaki accepted her request to go to eat together, but she couldn't help but smile. Her heart was beating against her chest, but she didn't care. She looked after Naruto. He was yet again walking away from her, but this time, it's different. She knew she would meet him again for sure. Stupid. Thought Naruto 2 minutes later. He couldn't believe he really did that. Why did he agree to her request? He wanted to stay on the sidelines. He basically screamed for attention if he went eating alone with a girl who was in a harem. Naruto also thought that Mionaris would be the main girl in Basara's harem since she was the first one to really stand out. She was the first whom Basara protected. Yuki was second as far as he knew. Chisato was also in the mix now. If Basara had outside of those 3 other women in his harem, it wasn't important. The important fact was that Naruto was more or less going on a date with most likely the main girl of Basara's harem and she showed unnatural affection towards him. This wasn't good at all. He even threatened Basara, Mio, and Yuki, saying that they should stay away from him when it came to their problems. What did he do? He was doing something that could only go wrong. He sighed heavily and looked toward the sky. What am I doing here? Thought Naruto. He shook his head and looked right then left before crossing the street. He closed his eyes and tapped into his reverse sight ability. He just wanted to make sure no one was following him. When he arrived at his apartment, he walked inside and closed the door behind him. He had one thing in mind. He wanted to dissolve all the clones in the factory to see what results they had achieved so far. He lay down on his bed and created a single clone beside him. The others can also dissolve, said Naruto. The clone didn't say anything and dissolved. The memories Naruto got weren't just for him. Every clone he created also got the memories from the dissolved clone he had just created before it dissolved itself. Naruto closed his eyes and waited. It was unbelievable what he got in the next few minutes. All the knowledge and experience the clones had in the hours they were training in the factory. He got everything, but also the exhaustion. This was the reason why he was in his bed. He already thought what now happened would happen. He became unconscious from all the exhaustion that came back with the memories of the clones and the chakra. Everything Naruto saw was darkness when he opened his eyes again. He looked around and remained silent. Am I dreaming again? Thought Naruto. He looked down and could see his body even when everything was dark around him. He only wore tattered orange pants. No shirt, no shoes, nothing. He had bare feet and his upper body was exposed. Naruto stopped when he saw a light in the distance. He looked at it for a minute to see if the light would come closer, but it wasn't the case. The light remained where it was. Naruto began to walk further toward the light and tried to feel something around him. Naruto stopped when he saw multiple screens popped up around him. It was like multiple video transmissions were playing around him. He focused on one of the screens and could actually hear how 2 people were speaking. He couldn't exactly understand everything, but he managed to understand that he saw memories of other versions of him. Every single screen showed memories of another version of himself. He looked around and he could see many different versions of himself living their lives. Like Ashura said, there were even a few female versions of himself. It was strange to see all those lives. It was like Naruto was watching TV. Why am I seeing this? Thought Naruto. He thought that Ashura was gone and with it were the memories of his other versions. So why did he see those memories now? He had wide eyes when he saw a female version of himself training in something. Come on, Kakashi-sensei. Show me the manipulation for wind chakra, said the female Naruto. Alright, I will show it to you. But if you have any more questions, go to Asuma. He can help you better than I do. My natural affinity is lightning, said Kakashi. Naruto could see how the female version of himself began to train wind chakra manipulation. The next memory he got was from a male version of himself from another dimension. He could see how he meditated on a strange mountain. Naruto blinked a few times after he saw multiple versions of himself training on different topics. One was for wind manipulation, another was for something called Sage Mode, another was trained for something completely different, and so forth. When Naruto saw all the screens vanish around him, he saw how the light came closer. He held a hand before his eyes, shielding them from the blinding light. Naruto looked up through the gaps in his fingers. It was a sun that now lit up the darkness around him. Naruto felt a strange sensation in his right hand. He looked at it and got wide eyes when the sun-shaped yang seal on his right palm was shining in a bright light. He began to yell in pain. His hand shot upward. The sun hovering in the air, illuminating the area around Naruto, was shooting toward him like a meteor. The sun began to transform into pure energy. The energy began to compromise before it crashed on Naruto's right palm. Naruto could feel an intense heat flowing into his body. He cried out in pain and closed both eyes. Even when he wanted to lower his right hand, he couldn't. It was like his body was frozen in pain. When Naruto's body completely absorbed the energy, he fell to his knees and panted strongly. He gritted his teeth, seeing how his vision blurred. He tried to fight it, but his eyes rolled back and darkness consumed him once again. He didn't know how long he slept, but when he woke up, it was in the middle of the night. He looked at his right hand and couldn't see any changes. The sun-shaped yang seal looked like before. What was that dream? Thought Naruto. Why had he absorbed a freaking sun into his body? He didn't understand it. Besides this, why did he see multiple versions of himself training for different things? He thought he wouldn't dream about his other versions anymore after he saw the memories from the one version he got to see through Ashura. Naruto shook his head and stood up. He looked at the calendar and saw that it was still the same day. So I slept until 11 p.m. thought Naruto. He prepared everything that he had in mind and dressed up for training. He just slept for 6 hours. There was no way he could sleep in the next hours. Since he couldn't train his body after school today, he would do it now. He needed to clear his head and a good workout always helped. Naruto took a water bottle with him and left his apartment. Before he would begin his workout, he would create his clones again in the factory. To save time, he used his superhuman speed from his total concentration breathing to travel at high speed toward the factory. "I see," said Zolgear. He was sitting on his king-size bed and looking at the magical transmission he had seen. Zest showed him what she discovered over the last few days. She was watching Naruto the entire time and had to report a few things. "Very interesting." "Indeed, very interesting," said Zolgear, chuckling. "To think he could be the leader of the fallen angels is remarkable. It seems like he also has healing abilities that don't have anything to do with the sword of the Thunder God." "Yes, my lord." The moment Mio Nerus got caught by Naruto Uzumaki, all her injuries from the fight against Kakabiel healed instantly, said Zest. Basara TMJM wasn't at the school that day. Naruto Uzumaki and Mio Nerus came closer during the day. I can't explain why, but Mio Nerus seems to be searching for proximity to Naruto Uzumaki. Even when Naruto Uzumaki tried to stay away from her, she always came to him that day. Zolgear held his free hand toward his chin. "It seems like Naruto Uzumaki has left an impression on the daughter of the former King Wilbert." "Yes, my lord. It is clear Mio Nerus has a high interest in Naruto Uzumaki. It's not clear yet how high the interest is, but it can be said that a relationship with Basara TMJM isn't the same as before," said Zest. Zolgear drank some wine before looking at the magical transmission. He saw where Naruto and Mio talked after the fight with Kakabiel. Zolgear saw something for a brief second. He raised an eyebrow when he saw it again. "Look at that, this is even more interesting than I thought," said Zolgear. He chuckled and drank some more wine. "It seems like Naruto Uzumaki has indeed a very strong bond with Mio Nerus. But for it to work, we will have to help a little." He looked at how Naruto Uzumaki vanished from the fight and left Mio Nerus behind. What Naruto didn't see at that moment was something about Mio Nerus. On Mio Nerus's neck began to glow a weird collar-like symbol with a heart in the middle. This was the symbol when a curse would be activated, but somehow, it wasn't. Mio Nerus was completely fine and wasn't affected by the curse of the master-servant contract she had with Basara TMJM. It seems like Naruto Uzumaki has somehow managed to negate the effect of the master-servant contract she has with Basara TMJM. "Very interesting," said Zolgear. "It could have something to do with the sun-shaped symbol on his right palm, my lord," said Zest. Zolgear nodded and said, "Yes. This could be, but we will have to wait and see. This entire scenario is so amusing and interesting that it would be a shame if we act so soon. Why don't we push Mio Nerus further toward Naruto Uzumaki and see how everyone will react?" Zolgear raised his wine glass and his eyes shone lightly pink. "Let's see how you will deal with the unknown territory of pleasure, Naruto Uzumaki," said Zolgear. Zest bowed and vanished in a teleportation circle, already having understood the meaning of the words of her master. She would have to give Maria Nerus a new order. Since tomorrow was a full moon, this would be the perfect chance to act. It was time for Mio Nerus to have another master. Naruto panted when he stopped to drink something. He was a little outside of Tokyo and looked up toward the stars. He smiled when he felt the cold breeze blow against his body. It felt refreshing and made him feel alive. All the things that happened weren't on his mind right now. He simply enjoyed the moment and let his mind rest. He concentrated on his workout and the beauty this world had to offer. Nature, the stars in the sky, and other natural beauties. He placed the water bottle on his right side again before continuing to run. He still needed to run 30 kilometers before he would finish. He stopped after a few minutes and looked around. He knew someone was watching him. "Come out," said Naruto. Nothing happened at first before he could hear steps. Naruto was on a street with a forest on the right side and a river on the other. He looked toward the shadows of the trees and waited. The steps came closer before Naruto could see two legs appear from the shadows of the forest. But the person didn't walk further into the light. The only things that could be seen were her legs, wooden sandals, and the lower end of a black kimono. "Hello, Naruto Uzumaki," said a female voice. It was almost like the woman purred his name out. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the way this woman said his name. "Hello. Should I know you?" asked Naruto. "Oh, you don't remember our intimate situation on the school roof?" asked the woman. Naruto remained silent until he could see something flashing in the dark. It was two golden eyes. Naruto narrowed his eyes and thought, those eyes, I have seen those eyes before. He couldn't remember directly, but after some thinking, he remembered the black cat on the roof he had met. This was the same cat that ran away from the monster he killed the other day. "You're the cat," said Naruto. "Correct," said the woman with a happy voice. "I was the cat you saved and later on visited you on the roof of your school. Don't you want to show me your entire appearance, or what are you trying to accomplish with this?" asked Naruto. "You interest me, Naruto Uzumaki," said the woman. "That much would be obvious," said Naruto. "Otherwise, you wouldn't come to visit me yet again. So what do you want from me, Catwoman?" The black tail could be seen shortly before it vanished again. "You possess chakra as a human. This should be impossible, and your chakra is so strong and dense that it makes one wonder if you are even a human," said the woman. "If I hadn't my chakra, I would be dead," said Naruto, as if it would be the most obvious thing in the world. "But besides that, something else. I still want to end my training before I need to go to school." "Oh, you want to leave even when I came all the way to visit you again?" asked the woman. Naruto could hear it from the voice. The woman was pouting. "You didn't give me a reason to stay. Everything you did so far was speaking around the bush. I have better things to do than to play with you," said Naruto. "Oh, too bad," said the woman. She took a few steps forward, revealing her stunning beauty to Naruto. Naruto had to concentrate, not to blush. "I guess it's time to get down to business," said the woman with a seductive smile. "My name is Kuroka," said Kuroka. Kuroka was a beautiful young woman with a voluptuous figure, long black hair with split bangs, and hazel gold eyes with cat-like pupils. Her attire consisted of a black kimono, a yellow obi, a set of golden beads, and an ornately detailed headband. The kimono featured a red interior, and it was open at her shoulders, giving a view of her large that rivaled those of Ms. Hasegawa. "Shall we come down to business, Naruto-kun?" asked Kuroka. Naruto gulped once and looked into her golden eyes. He didn't know what was going on right now. The world around the two was shrouded in some kind of mist, and he couldn't take his eyes off Kuroka's body. What do you mean?" asked Naruto. He didn't know what was wrong with him. It was like his senses were being manipulated. Everything that he could see and sense was Kuroka. Kuroka walked up toward Naruto and raised her hand. Her hand was gently placed against his whiskered cheek. Naruto tried to fight the feeling he had right now. It was like Kuroka did something with him he didn't notice. Naruto's eyes widened when she placed one of his hands on her large dot. His hand almost instantly began to fondle her large breast. Kuroka moaned slightly and licked her lips. She could see Naruto's frozen and flushed face. Kuroka's voice triggered something inside Naruto. He didn't know what it was. His pupils became black slits and he growled slightly. "Yes, let your instinct take over, Naruto-kun," said Kuroka. She was holding Naruto's hand still on her breast, so Naruto couldn't pull away his hand. Naruto tried to fight it, but everything was futile when Kuroka's lips met his. His eyes widened yet again after feeling the soft and full lips of Kuroka. Naruto began to kiss her back and couldn't stop himself from raising his other hand, taking her other breast in his hand. Kuroka moaned and lay her arms around Naruto's neck. Both were making out for a minute before Naruto's eyes shot open and he broke the kiss, hugged Kuroka, and vanished just in time to dodge a dark magic beam. Both appeared in the forest. Kuroka smiled, satisfied, and kissed Naruto on the cheek. "You are indeed who I am looking for, Naruto-kun. I will come again," said Kuroka. Naruto had already let go of Kuroka and could only watch how she vanished in a teleportation circle. He narrowed his eyes when his mind became clear again. "What did I just do?" thought Naruto. It was like his mind was froggy after Kuroka revealed herself. He wanted to feel her more, kiss her more, and so much more at that moment. Naruto narrowed his eyes when he heard clapping. "It seems my intervention was needed," said a male voice. Naruto would recognize this voice every time. "Takagawa," said Naruto. Out of the shadow of a tree walked Takagawa, who was in his demonic appearance, wearing an elegant suit and white mask. "I didn't want to interfere in your little intimate action with the Imkai, but I noticed you weren't exactly yourself," said Takagawa. Naruto remained silent and Takagawa chuckled. "I guess a thank you don't come out of your mouth," said Takagawa. "What do you want, Takagawa? If you want to drag me into your little schemes against TMJM and the girls, then I have to disappoint you." "I won't join either side," said Naruto. "Oh, Uzumaki, you realize you are already in the middle of this entire situation, don't you?" said Takagawa. "If you want to provoke me, then you do a good job," said Naruto. Takagawa could feel how Naruto's presence changed. The ground cracked under the extreme pressure of Naruto's chakra. Naruto was surrounded by orange chakra. "I think his chakra is dense enough to become so visible," thought Takagawa. Imkai also had chakra, but almost none could make it visible like Naruto did right now. Someone had to have strong and dense chakra for it to appear like an aura around the user and begin to crack the ground. "If you don't want to fight, then I would give you the advice to piss off. I have no nerves for you, Takagawa. Just let me stay on the sidelines and we won't have a problem," said Naruto. Takagawa bowed slightly and said, "As you wish, Uzumaki. I didn't come here with the intention to fight or provoke you. We will speak another time when you are calmer. He turned around and spread his devil wings before flying into the night. Naruto looked after Takagawa and stopped flaring his potent chakra. He looked around and could see that some trees also had cracks because of the chakra he irradiated for the moment. I should go home. I need to think about what just happened, thought Naruto. Takagawa was right with one thing, Naruto wasn't himself the moment he was making out with Kuroka. It was like his body was controlled by something else. He looked at his hands and remembered the feeling of Kuroka's large dot. He shook his head when he began to blush slightly. Even when he wasn't himself in that moment, he couldn't deny that it felt good. Naruto vanished and made his way toward his apartment. He just hoped he could figure out why he wasn't himself. He needed to be ready if Kuroka ever showed up again. This could become a big problem if he didn't figure out her trick and how she manipulated him into doing those things with him. When Naruto appeared before his apartment, he walked inside. He closed and locked the door behind him and looked at the watch. Still, 3 hours until I have to get ready for school, thought Naruto. He walked into his bathroom and took a shower. The cold water helped him to get a clear head again. He looked down and saw the aftermath of his little makeout session with Kuroka. His member was still twitching. Naruto would come out 20 minutes later, wearing only a towel around his waist. He walked into his bedroom and dressed up to cook himself something. Naruto decided to sleep until he had to get ready for school. He wanted to rest a little after the things that happened with Kuroka and Takagawa. It wasn't that he was tired or anything, he just wanted to sleep to have a clearer mind. Sleeping did wonders for anybody. He was standing in a familiar room, a giant hall, to be more precise. He knew where he was, his original-looking subconscious. He stood before the 2 giant gates where formerly the Kyuubi, 9 Tails, was sealed behind. Those 2 massive doors were the reason the Kyuubi couldn't break out of Naruto's body of his own. Actually, he knew the actual name of the beast, but he didn't acknowledge the name. For Naruto, this monster was the reason why he had nothing but hell in his former life. The real name of the Kyuubi was Kurama, but Naruto didn't use this name for it. For Naruto, the Kyuubi was the monster who took every chance he had at a good life in Konoha. If it weren't for the Kyuubi, Naruto might have been able to find friends. Who knew? He could have a family he didn't know about. His other versions might have accepted this monster as their partner and became stronger because of it, but Naruto didn't. He hated this beast with his entire existence. The 2 massive gates were still closed, but the paper with the kanji for seal on it wasn't present. Naruto looked into the darkness behind the gates and saw nothing. He narrowed his eyes when he couldn't see anything. Why didn't he see the Kyuubi or any other beast behind those 2 massive gates? He was sure he had felt the chakra of the Kyuubi when he met the woman in his dream. He didn't recognize it at first, but later on, he remembered this feeling. Such a bottomless hatred was something only the chakra of the Kyuubi radiated. Naruto walked further toward the 2 massive gates. He had stood a good 20 meters away from it. This was the minimum distance he used to stay away from the gates because otherwise, the Kyuubi could hit him even through the gates. Slowly but surely, he saw something behind those massive gates. The familiar red chakra of the Kyuubi was hovering in the air behind the gates. What's going on? I see the chakra of the Kyuubi, but not the Kyuubi, thought Naruto. He walked past the gates into the place where the chakra was hovering in the air. The moment Naruto placed a single foot into the place behind bars, the chakra began to fly toward Naruto. Naruto had wide eyes and stepped back instantly. The chakra crashed against the gates, and a barrier hindered the chakra from escaping the prison cell. Okay, I understand nothing. So, I have the chakra from the Kyuubi behind the seal that formerly held the Kyuubi itself at bay. But why is only the chakra from the beast here and not the beast itself? Thought Naruto. He shook his head and didn't want to figure that one out. If he only had the chakra from the Kyuubi inside himself, then he didn't have to worry. The chakra was trapped behind those 2 massive bars and couldn't escape. He also didn't want to find out what happened when he would let the red chakra reach him before he left the prison cell again. Nothing good, so much was clear. He turned around and began to walk away from the massive gates. The next question was how I escape this massive hall, thought Naruto. He already tried to leave it like he did in the past, but he couldn't. Something was holding him here and hindered him from escaping like usual. After 5 minutes of walking, he walked into a dead end. In the past, there was a corridor that led away from the beast that was trapped there. But now there was nothing. The giant hall was just a big room without any door or other forms of escaping it. He looked back toward the 2 giant gates. How the hell can I escape this room without walking into the prison cell? Thought Naruto. He closed his eyes and tried to manipulate this room with his will. After all, this was his subconscious once, so he should be able to manipulate it. But it didn't work. He opened his eyes and couldn't understand it. He walked back and tried to find another escape method. He paid close attention to both sides of the giant halls while he walked toward the giant double gates again. He had a feeling he didn't like. He stopped when he thought about something. Of course. Thought Naruto. Narukami. Said Naruto. Since Narukami was residing in his current and real subconscious, he should be able to call it and let it summon him out of there. He should be able to leave this place and enter his real subconscious through Narukami. Lightning appeared before Naruto, and he smiled in relief when Narukami appeared before him. "Thank God. You really appeared," said Naruto with a smile. "Naruto," said Narukami. "Sorry for summoning you to such a weird place. Could you summon me out of here into my real subconscious?" asked Naruto. Narukami hovered in the air and said nothing. Naruto became confused when his partner didn't answer. "Hey, what's wrong?" asked Naruto, worried. "Naruto, you should be able to tell it," said Narukami. Naruto narrowed his eyes when he heard this. "What do you mean?" asked Naruto. "You should be able to escape this room without any worry," said Narukami. "Are you kidding me? I tried it, okay? I tried everything I knew, but nothing worked," said Naruto. "You didn't try everything," said Narukami. Narukami hovered a little to the side and let Naruto see the two massive gates. "The only way out of here is on the other side of the gates." "Come on, this is not funny," said Naruto. "I know that you know it," said Narukami. "You also know what that means for us." "No. I will never accept this beast as my partner. I have you as my partner, Narukami." "Don't even begin to talk about things that won't happen," said Naruto. "Naruto, you need." Narukami was interrupted by Naruto's voice. "Shut up," said Naruto angrily. "I will not accept this. I don't care if some higher being gave you me. You were the first friend I made in this world and I won't let you sever the bond we made. Never. The god or whatever borrowed me, you can go fuck himself. You have been my friend and partner since the day I opened my eyes to this world. I won't let you go," said Naruto. "And I don't want to hear that you will go back to the entity who gave you to me as long as you seem fit. I want no other partner besides you," said Naruto. "I am sorry, Naruto, but the time has come. You are strong enough to survive without me and your real partner could be by your side again. I was only by your side until you awakened your hidden abilities and managed to awaken your real partner again," said Narukami. "Once you step past the gates, the chakra of the Kikbi will touch you and the Yang seal on your palm. With the Yang seal you got from Ashura, you are able to awaken the Kikbi again," said Narukami. "No," said Naruto. He did something Narukami didn't accept. "I don't care what you think, who my real partner is. This is my life and I make the decisions. I have already chosen you as my real partner. The Kikbi can go fuck himself all he wants. I don't care about him. He only caused me pain in Konoha and I can't forget that." Naruto grabbed Narukami's handle and was surrounded by lightning the next second. "Naruto, don't," said Narukami. "I don't care. I will not let you go," said Naruto. He closed an eye when he felt how the lightning began to burn his flesh. Naruto gritted his teeth and didn't let go of Narukami's handle. "Naruto, let go. I can't control the lightning that hurts you right now. Please," said Narukami desperately. This was not how it was supposed to go. Naruto should have just accepted it and stepped inside the cage. This way, he would have been able to get the Kikbi back, but he did the complete opposite. He took Narukami in his hand and triggered the lightning attack that Naruto had to endure right now. This was the result of Naruto trying to fight against the choice that someone made. Someone had given Narukami to Naruto, but just as long as Naruto would get the tools to get his real partner back. Naruto had the tools for that. The Yang seal on his right hand was everything he needed. The one who gave Narukami to Naruto tried to get Narukami back right now. Naruto talked through the pain he felt. "I woe N''T give you up," said Naruto. "Naruto, please. Stop," said Narukami. Narukami couldn't do anything right now besides watch how Naruto got hurt. She couldn't escape Naruto's hands because he had managed to bind himself to Narukami as long as he held Narukami in place. Naruto smirked and said, "If the one who gave you to me wants me to live and do something, he won't kill me." Naruto closed one eye because the pain was almost unbearable. "Because he won't get you back. You're wrong, Naruto." "I am sorry, but I can't let you die," said Narukami. Naruto's eyes widened when he felt how Narukami began to vanish. "No. Please. Stay by my side," said Naruto. The lightning around him vanished at the same moment when Narukami began to vanish. "I can't. The god who gave me to you isn't as nice as you think. He would kill you. I can't let that happen, I am sorry. But don't worry, you have allies whom you can trust. Don't let the past control you. I know you can do it," said Narukami. "Narukami," yelled Naruto with tears in his eyes. The sword his partner, his first ever friend, was gone. Naruto went on both knees and held his face with two hands. He had never cried since he was 6 years old. But right now, he cried harder than ever. The first friend he made a meaningful connection with had been taken from him. He didn't know how long he was kneeling on the hard steel ground, crying. He only knew that his entire body was filled with sorrow. After some time, Naruto stood up and looked toward the two giant gates. His hair shadowed his face while he walked toward it. He walked into the prison cell and let the red chakra from the kickbee hit his body. He didn't show any reaction to the hate he felt. He stood there and raised his right palm, holding it before him. The sun-shaped yang seal on his right palm began to shine brightly and the prison cell was filled with a bright light. Red chakra appeared all around Naruto and began to fly toward a single point. When the bright light faded away, Naruto could see a miniature version of the kickbee sleeping on the ground. Naruto clapped his hands together and simply vanished, not even saying a word to the kickbee who just appeared. The kickbee wasn't as big as it was originally. The kickbee was only as big as a full-grown dog right now. The kickbee opened both eyes when he woke up. The kickbee looked around and afterward toward the gates. "Something went wrong," said the kickbee in a deep voice. Naruto opened his eyes to the real world and had a blank expression on his face. He stood up and walked out of his bedroom. He took a quick shower, dressed up, and walked out of his apartment. He wasn't wearing his school uniform. Normally, he would have to prepare for school, but he wouldn't go today. He wasn't in the mood. He would still go to school in the end because he accepted Mio's request to eat together after school. He would never break his word even when he wasn't in the mood at all. Naruto began to run toward the factory building. He had training to do, and this time, he would train with his clones together. He needed to clear his head and get the negative emotions out of his body. Intense training helped the most in this situation. There would also be the fact that he didn't have Narukami anymore. He couldn't fight like he normally did in this world. He mostly used Narukami because of the immense strength Narukami had. He needed to learn ninjutsu more than ever before. He knew he would surely face strong opponents. He just knew it. Only Theshido clones weren't enough. Naruto needed to step up his game. He still remembered a few things his other versions were training. For example, wind manipulation or the Sage mode. He would acquire everything he could remember. But first of all would be learning the Rasengan, followed by wind manipulation, and finished with attaining Sage mode. This was his priority list for now. Everything afterward remained to be seen, but he had his goals in mind.